All right, just sit back and get ready to have the most fun you ever had with an electronic device.
Who was the guy that the Jets had last year? Was it Fails?
Fails.
His name was Fails or something?
Perfect name.
Put him in there.
And now for the Jets, starting at quarterback, Epic Fails.
All right, everybody, welcome out to the Log Room. It is Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. Jersey Johnny coming at you, and with me, as always, is none other than Mr. RadioPete, Mr. Harry Lug Nutz. Say hello, guys.
Hello, guys.
Howdy, folks.
Howdy, folks.
Happy Wednesday night football night.
Wednesday night football night.
Are they
Yes, it
actually playing?
I think it's
played
over. It's over.
Who won?
Steelers won.
Okay. Just
Is
because
that-
I got to update the pick sheet.
This is true. Yeah, Steelers won 19-14, I believe, was the final score.
Yeah.
So,
Not surprised.
yeah, it wasn't as close as the score seemed either.
All right, good to know.
But yeah, there you go. Yeah, well, anyway, it's Wednesday night. It is time for the Log Room. We're going to get going on a bunch of sports things this evening. We had an interesting Wednesday afternoon football we had. Not Monday night football.
Why not?
Sunday night football.
Why not?
What?
Why not?
Why not? Wednesday afternoon football. Why the hell not? And you know why the game was scheduled for 3:40 this afternoon, right? You know why the reasoning for that was?
Because there's something else going on this evening.
The Christmas tree lighting in Rockefeller Center.
Yes. They're gonna,
It's an NBC game, so they had to get that in before they went to the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighting.
is the owl going to be there?
The Owls making a special appearance at the Pittsburgh game, actually.
That's right.
I figured they'd want to start early just in case they had to postpone it for another couple hours. Like, well, we could push it back to 6:30, I guess. Get that guy an IV and get him out there.
Get him out.
We need 38 for them to actually be able to play. So.
Unbelievable.
Out of all of the things that have upset people this year, I think the selection of that tree for Rockefeller Center, I've never seen more angry idiots on the intermedia's Instaface things. I'm just like,
Intermedia's Instaface.
settle down. It's just a tree.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's appropriate, right? I mean,
it's definitely
they
appropriate.
should have
for
just
this
put
year,
up a Festivus pole and stuck a.
What's wrong with the tree? I haven't looked.
Oh, it was a little sparse.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It looked like my bank account.
Was it from a California forest that it had burned?
That's right.
And they
Yeah.
kind of brought in the smoldering.
Might as well be. That would have been.
It was beetle kill pine.
That would have been even
Oh,
more
okay.
appropriate.
Well, actually, I heard today. I think that I forget what year it was, the 2000 something. The last time they had a football game on Wednesday was they put a Thursday game on Wednesday because Barack Obama was making a speech at the
Salad.
Democratic convention.
Oh.
And so that's why they postponed the game.
Well,
So there you go.
there
Obama
you go.
and COVID.
Obama and
reasons
COVID
to-
are the two reasons to play football on Wednesdays. But
Now,
was that
do you
game on
guys
Wednesday
buy-
night or afternoon?
I think it was Wednesday night.
There you go.
Do you guys? How much stock do you put into the? It's not about who's available, because people were saying why Pittsburgh's getting screwed over here, and there were certain other games that were not postponed, like the Denver game. Why Denver didn't have a quarterback? Why not postpone that game? And the league saying, well, we don't postpone it because of the players who are out. We just have to make sure there's enough guys or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well,
But it kind of seems like this game, because a lot of people are saying just have a week 18 and play this game week 18.
Sure.
And
That would make more
maybe it'll
sense.
mean something. Probably not. It might probably mean something for Baltimore, but most likely not for Pittsburgh.
Right.
So they had just had to get this game in because it's Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and it's a big ticket game and all that.
Well,
Do you guys put any stock in that, or do you believe the NFL that it's not about the people who are available? It's not, or it's not about the size of the crowd or the market share or whatever. It's just about if they have enough guys, then we're going to play.
I think it's timing. I think it's if there's a COVID outbreak and it's earlier in the week, then they can preemptively postpone it to make sure that the protocols are in place. The Broncos, I mean, that was a last minute deal and kind of stupid for a room full of quarterbacks to all be taken. I mean, maybe we should be socially distancing our quarterbacks.
Well, that was the other thing, is they were saying, well, they ignored the rules. And so the NFL was, without saying it, was kind of saying, well, if you're not going to follow the protocols and all your quarterbacks are going to get sick, then the hell with you. You're idiots and you deserve what you get.
Yeah, but if that was Kansas City, would they be starting?
Well, that's right. And that's the whole, I mean, to move this game 3 times.
Yeah.
It seems like, like why just do it a week 18.
Right. And more what Harry was saying, though, I agree. If the Broncos game last week, if that was the Chiefs, they would have postponed the game. They would have moved stuff around. I'm sorry. I just don't believe that if Mahomes was out because of being quarantined and the rest of the quarterbacks on that staff and they had to move some stuff, I do not believe 1 minute that they would not have moved the game.
And I think they were trying to. They're like, all right, the Broncos, let's face it, are not going anywhere this year. Let's at least use this as a learning experience or an example of some sort.
Right. Yeah, that's what people were saying.
They did say
teach them a lesson.
They did say, however, that the New York Mets actually had more healthy Denver Broncos quarterbacks than the Denver Broncos did. So
he won't go away.
But
he just won't go away. And I just pray, ironically, that he goes the fuck away.
The real
not a big
irony
Tebow fan, are you?
No. He's the one guy I'll take Daniel Jones over.
The real irony of that is that the Broncos quarterbacks that were sick are all better hitters than Tim Tebow.
They're all better hitters.
Yeah.
So
irony amongst irony.
I'd be happy to trade. I'd be happy to trade one of those guys for Tebow.
Yeah.
That's hysterical. That's great. I love that.
The Mets farm system had more starting quarterbacks. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, we had speaking of the tree. Beer Samurai Dave said Charlie Brown's tree. If Charlie Brown was a giant, that's the.
Charlie Brown was a giant, but so were all of the other peanuts. Ironically,
this is true.
That's why Schroeder's piano looks so small.
Yeah, there you go.
Woodstock was actually 6'5".
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, well, let's get into a little of the Giants for a hot second here. They are in first place. Giants are in first place. Oddly enough, in a division again, that's like I said the other week. That's like being the least stinkiest shirt in the laundry pile. But they're in first place, and the defense looked pretty good though. For the most part, throughout the game. And I know they were only playing the Bengals, but the Bengals, they're not they're not the worst. 2-8-1 team out there.
Well, they were also without their best player,
right? Of course,
top two with two of their top 3 best players. Look, the Giants look okay. Everybody, I don't mean to be the Giants, rain on the parade guy,
right.
but
I'm gonna be.
Yay, the Giants! The Giants snuck out a win against a Bengals team without their best player. And yay, we won a game against other NFC East teams.
Well, you know what? Here's my take on that game, and I'm not gonna like blow smoke up anybody's ass, but the game, I don't think it was as close as it seemed. For the most part of the game, the only score that the Giants gave up for the Bengals was a field goal. That return was special teams, and the other touchdown that they had. I'm sorry, and I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. This year, there have been a lot of crappy calls from referees, and I don't know whether they're homers. I don't know. I'm not going to point any fingers. I'm not going to say there's any conspiracies or any crap like that. But I just think that there was that one, the third down play when they called pass interference in the end zone, which would have obviously resulted in another field goal for the Bengals. That was not pass interference, but there was holding by the Bengals. They didn't throw the flag for that. That's my point. And it was a blatant hold too. So whatever you want to say about it, the score wasn't as close as it was. I'm not giving a pass to the Giants. I'm not saying that they're the best thing since sliced bread, but that's why I'm saying that the score was closer than it was. Not as close as it was, I should say.
And that, my friend, is a very deep dive into a Giants Bengals game.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, you could kind of say, this is a game that the Giants should have won more convincingly, considering.
Sure.
But you could also say, for whatever it's worth, because they're the Bengals and they're without Joe Burrow. But this was, you could say the Bengals were maybe probably a little bit pissed. Not necessarily the Giants, but at what had happened to their season, and they lost their quarterback. And a team like that has nothing to lose can be dangerous sometimes.
This is true.
Although, again, they really weren't mustering up any offense. But
I mean, they beat somebody other than an NFC team, so hallelujah.
Yeah.
John you do realize they're going to win one more game this year.
Oh yeah, they're going to win. They're going to win.
They're going to win 3 more.
We'll talk.
I don't know who they're playing, but I think
John Donovan just said the last 2 years they lose. The last 2 years they lose that game. Absolutely, absolutely. True. So there's progress as little as it may be.
And the other thing is they won it, or the Bengals lost it in kind of a very Giants-esque way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that this is not
a turnover by the QB. Uh-oh.
This was not exactly. This was not. It was a couple of turnovers by the quarterback there, but this was not a game that the other team lost. This was a game the Giants won. I'll give them the win on this, not the other team's loss.
They kicked more field goals than the other team.
There you go. Graham Gano was better.
Graham Gano is the MVP.
There you go.
All right, now what about this week? Okay,
I was going to say, I will tell you this, though. Daniel Jones was out of that game for more than half of the game. And you put him in that game, you keep him in that game, they win more convincingly. But
I think they win by 2 field goals.
There you go. Or 3. But if you keep,
you could definitely drive them down to the 35 at least one more time.
Well, they would probably win by 6, so that if the Bengals had scored on that last drive, they could have taken a 1-point lead and won the game. But of course, they turned it over. So yeah, they would have definitely been ahead by more.
And I do agree. The defense looks good. They look like they look a lot faster than they have been in years past, and they've got some good young talent. I wish they had a little bit more of a pass rush, although that looked pretty good this week. Yeah,
pass rush looked good.
They're getting better. Yeah. As a team, I think overall in almost every aspect, they're getting better. And that's what you want to see.
They have somewhat of a running game without Saquon Barkley. All of a sudden, the offensive line doesn't look half bad. Doesn't look great, but it doesn't look half bad.
They're
Bengals. Yeah, but the question now is, what do you do if Daniel Jones doesn't play? Because Colt McCoy, pew pew pew.
Yeah. Who's the other quarterback? I don't even know who the other.
They signed Alex Tanney off the practice squad, so he's the backup.
Okay, and he was a backup for the Giants in years past.
He's been a backup for the last couple of years. Yeah.
Has he ever played?
No.
In preseason against the Jets.
Preseason against the Jets in the fourth quarter,
and they won. Scored 2 touchdowns.
He had the highest QBR in the history of the game. In that one quarter.
Right. So, but it's looking like
is Staples going to give him Sundays off because they're open on Sundays?
They are. Well, no, because he works in the one in Bergen County, so it's closed.
Okay, good.
So there you go.
Oh, that's cold.
There you go.
I mean, it's like Colt McCoy and Alex Tanney. That's the best way to make Daniel Jones look good. Is
exactly
those 2 guys. Next time.
But let's talking about Daniel Jones. The injury is just a strain to his.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's not.
I hope it's not lingering.
Yeah, but at least it's not a pull. So, he has a chance to come back sooner than later. I think they haven't made a decision on this weekend yet, but I think it's ridiculous if they want to bring him back right now. Look, even with Daniel Jones in there, they're going to Seattle. They're playing Seattle in Seattle. Even with Daniel Jones in there. Seattle's defense really isn't. We'll talk about that later, but Seattle's defense really isn't all that. They're shockingly bad this year. But so you never know what would happen there. But I still think it would be a really big chore for the Giants to do any damage against the Seahawks, even with Jones in there. So why risk putting him back too early? Let Colt McCoy go out there and take the loss, and then pick it up the week after and go from there.
I think if he's healthy and there's no risk to him doing further damage to his body, which is incredibly almost impossible to predict,
right?
Then you got to play him,
right? Oh yeah, no. If the trainers say, hey, you know what, he's good to go.
If he's hurt, then you got to
sit him.
You got to sit him, and maybe sit him for longer than
Well, the Eagles are visiting the Packers, and the Cowboys are playing the Ravens in Baltimore.
Right.
Which the Ravens are going to have like 3 days rest.
No, they moved the game.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's now Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
So, and Washington is taking on the Steelers. So if there's ever a week to
And
not
they
have
moved
your
that- they
starting
moved that game,
quarterback, yeah, right. But I mean, as far as their division goes, right? Because
Right.
at this point, you kind of have to say, all right, let's play for the playoffs, right?
Right.
Might as well.
Right.
So if there's ever a week where you gotta expect reasonably so, at least everyone else in the division is going to go down.
Right.
Then you sit Daniel Jones. Don't even bother risking it, whether it can get worse or not, because it can always get worse.
Sure.
We always know it can always get worser.
It can
So
definitely
sit
get
him
worse.
down. If you lose, probably everybody loses, and you're in exactly the same place.
Everybody
But
gets
it
another
would-
loss, and that's it.
It would be nice to see Daniel Jones play against a team other than the Eagles, the Reds, the Washington football team, and the Cowboys and the Bengals.
Right.
It'd be
Right.
nice.
Yeah.
Let's see what, I mean, I'll give him credit. I think he has looked better. He's stopped fumbling the ball, which has been good. He's also had better protection.
Yeah. No, he has. He definitely has.
And this idea that the Giants don't have a good receiving core, I just don't get. They do.
They do. They definitely have a good receiving core.
Yeah.
How many more? That brings me to this question: how many more games do you think it's going to take the Giants, hypothetically speaking, to win the division? One more, two, three.
I only see the Giants winning one more game. Looking at their schedule,
you got Arizona, you got Cleveland, you got Baltimore, and you got Dallas. So maybe week
and
17.
and Ravens. You got the Ravens.
Yeah, they beat Dallas. That's it.
Yeah, that might be what it comes down to. Because
I think they can steal a game from either
Cleveland or Baltimore.
Cleveland
or Arizona.
Or Arizona. One of the. They're not beating the Seahawks this weekend.
They're not beating Cleveland. Do you know what is Cleveland? 8-2?
8-3.
Yeah,
8-3.
Of the next 5 games on the Giants schedule, the last 5 games on the Giants schedule, the best record is 8-3 by the Seahawks and the Browns. The Seahawks and the Browns are both 8-3.
I think the way Arizona looks, the two best chances they have are against the Cardinals and the Cowboys. So let's say they win 2 games. Let's be optimistic here.
So they're 6-10.
I think 6-10 wins you this division.
I think it does too. Well, how did the Ravens look? Because if you can make them one-dimensional, you've got a shot.
The Ravens haven't looked good in a while. I mean, they haven't looked Raven-esque, if you will, for many weeks.
But they held a pretty good Steelers offense to 19 points. They were in this game with a guy who hadn't played. And when was the last time Robert Griffin played?
I think he played
beginning of last year.
Minute of 2 games last year. At last minute of the game,
like early last year.
Yeah.
And you took away the Ravens, not only the Ravens' best player, one of the top 5 offensive weapons in the league.
Right.
Right.
So, and Griffin gave the Steelers 6 points on a pick 6. So they're not beating the Ravens.
Yeah, I guess not.
Well,
that's why I asked, because I had no idea what happened.
You know what?
Today.
Though, maybe somebody can take Lamar Jackson out for a beer right before the game, and he
true
he has to get quarantined again. For a couple
and
weeks.
maybe the Giants continue to improve, and maybe their defense, maybe in 1 or 2 of these games, the defense can put some points on the board and take a little bit of pressure off the Giants' offense.
Sure,
I'm not saying it's not possible, but just looking at all of those teams who are now going to be coming into crunch time, playing for not only the playoffs, but for home field advantage and, playoff rankings. And a lot of those teams are going to be fighting just to get into the playoffs. Even the teams that are 8-3, they're going to be fighting for the division and the wild card and everything else. So these games are going to mean something. And so now you're playing teams that are better than you on paper with something to play for. Now, if for whatever reason, maybe one of those games is a throwaway and it doesn't mean anything, then maybe the Giants get less than the best effort from one of them. Right. And then maybe they have a chance to steal a win.
I agree.
But most likely that would not be the Cowboys. Although in that situation might arise where the Cowboys are just so bad they're out of it. But they're certainly not going to come out and play lackluster against the Giants. But they're going to want to be the spoiler.
Yeah,
for sure.
And the Cowboys are up and down. They haven't been horrible every week.
Nope.
No, they haven't. But they're still the Cowboys, and the game is in MetLife.
A ringing endorsement for sure.
Exactly.
You can say that about a lot of teams. Well, they haven't been horrible every week.
Well, as far as the Ravens game goes,
they beat the Vikings.
Of course, this is true.
They only lost to the Steelers by 6 points.
As far as the Ravens game goes, Dave from the Beer Podcast said he'll take Lamar out and challenge him to keep up with him in a bar. So
There you go.
maybe you just got to do it the day before, not like the week
I
before.
I will put my money on David. I've watched that podcast. I think Lamar has no chance.
No chance there. None whatsoever. So MVP of that game will not be Lamar. So, but all right. Well, we'll see what happens. You know what? I think you're right. We can all agree that the Giants are most likely going to win the Dallas game. So that's going to give them a 5th win. Do they steal one? They may. You know what? I think you're right though. I think 6-10 wins this division. So if they can steal one of those games, there you go.
And look, they could be playing a meaningful game on the last week of the season
in January.
And if
meaningful football in January.
And if Dallas kind of holds up their end of the bargain, that could be the deciding. That could be the decider for the division. So
sure.
I still think that tie, the Eagles tie, it's somehow gonna dictate this whole thing.
Okay.
They gotta get some wins.
Dave Campanelle tells me I'm a trader in a Steelers jersey. The Steelers played today. That's why I'm wearing the jersey. There, Dave. Jersey Johnny, get it? So anyway, just wanted to bring that one to everybody's attention.
How much money have you spent on football paraphernalia?
Not much. Less than you think.
Yeah, they have those at Walmart now. You got the Steelers 5-pack at Costco.
Wait a minute. Does that say NFI?
It says NFI.
Is that a bootleg?
It's L100.
It's 19, but it's got Jack Ham's name on the back.
That's right. And it says Steelers up here.
Right.
You can't really see it well, so it's fine. But anyway, all right. Well, that brings us to the Jets portion of this podcast. And before we get there, we are going to start our Jets podcast section. Our Jets section of the podcast by we're deeming it a new section, and this is our drop for it.
The quest for 16.
There you go.
There we go.
Very
That's
good.
what the Jets are up to. They're on
Is that the new Coldplay single?
that was Coldplay. Yes, that was Coldplay.
That was actually custom written for this show.
That's right.
Yes, it was. So thank you very much, custom writer.
Thank you, Peter Giulio Medetti.
There you go.
I believe that's his first ever fanfare.
That is his first ever fanfare?
Yeah, I think
very
so.
good. Well, kudos to him.
So, how about those Jets?
How about those Jets?
Pretty good. They look pretty good.
Pretty good for the quest for 16. They look pretty good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, look, at least they're doing what they're supposed to do.
At least Trevor Lawrence will go to New York.
Well,
maybe.
Maybe. Remember, the Jags have the tiebreaker. So
that's true.
Yeah.
And listen, the Jets just need to win one game.
Yeah, Harry, I don't think this was a terrible pick last week. I mean, certainly we could say, it's the Jets and blah, blah, blah. But this seemed like, the Dolphins did not look good.
No.
They were kind of flat.
This
was a winnable game.
Yeah, they definitely was a winnable game. And they came out pretty strong again. They came out pretty strong.
Yeah.
And then
Darnold threw across his body a couple of times. And I think a few weeks ago we talked about Daniel Jones and making those same mistakes. And I know he's, Darnold is putting the world on his shoulders. And, in his mind, the way to get it done is for him to be better, But, man, you can't keep doing that kind of thing. He's
regressing a little bit. And I think he's just shell-shocked from getting hit so much. I mean, he's on pace to break the record for most sacks and hits. And, he's just –
and then you don't really know how, what exactly the shape his shoulder is in.
No, you really don't. You really don't. I don't think he should have, in the situation they're in right now, I think the only reason they put him back in this game or that game on Sunday, they started him in the game on Sunday, is just to showcase whatever they possibly could because they're planning on taking Trevor Lawrence and they want to trade him. So
yeah, they're trying to say, hey, look, we made a mistake. Let us prove it.
Right. Exactly. Pretty much.
And in that case, he played right into their hands.
Right into their hands, absolutely.
Right into the Dolphins' hands, more accurately.
He had 179 yards, but he had no TDs and 2 interceptions. And Fitzpatrick only had 257 yards, but he had 2 TDs and no interceptions. So
Fitzpatrick's a good quarterback. I'm sorry, I say that. I think the Dolphins. Look, the Dolphins won 20-3. What would they have done with a healthy Tua? Who knows?
Right.
I still go back to a couple when we had this discussion 2 or 3 weeks ago. I still think the Dolphins are a better team with Fitzpatrick in there right now.
Right now, yeah.
Right.
No, I agree with you. But let me ask you this: if you're on a trading block, if you're a team looking for a quarterback, not a franchise quarterback by any means, but somebody to take in and start immediately for your team that's going to win games for you next year after this year, are you trading for Sam Darnold or you're trading for Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Oh, Fitzpatrick. Yeah.
I know you're only going to get a few years out of Fitzpatrick, maybe, and you can have obviously a longer time with Sam Darnold. But who's going to give you instant results? Because that's what you're looking for, right? When you're trading for somebody like that.
I mean, Fitzpatrick, I think, is trying to play for every team before he retires. So
he might do it. Josh McCown might have something to say about that, but they're damn close. So
how many is Fitzpatrick? I mean, it's got to be 5 teams now, right?
Who's that?
Fitzpatrick or more?
More than that.
Yeah, 7.
I'll look right here while you.
I could actually see him back on the Jets.
Fitzpatrick?
I think he could be that elder statesman mentor.
Yeah,
for Trevor Lawrence if he decides to.
I could see that.
There.
Yeah.
Probably a good move for him.
There's no better quarterback the first 6 weeks of the season than Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's like a good starting pitcher. You get him in there, you get 6 out of him, and then you go to the bullpen.
It's like he's
go to the bullpen.
He's like a lithium. His lithium battery has been run up and down a lot, so it just doesn't last as long as it really should. So, I could see him back in that role.
Yeah.
Look, there's nothing about this season that really the Jets are worth talking about. It's all what is going to happen. Are they going to draft? Assuming they get that number 1 pick, which they still could blow that. Although Jacksonville looks like they're much closer to winning a second game, obviously, than the Jets are. But you never know what's going to happen. They could easily blow that. But even if they don't,
sure.
What do you do with Darnold? What do you get for him?
Let me pose this question.
Does Trevor Lawrence perhaps say, "I'm not going there. Don't draft me," because he could do that.
He could.
But let me ask you a different side of that question. If the Jets do have the first pick, and they don't take Trevor Lawrence, I mean, are Jets fans just going to revolt, or are they going to sit there and go, "Well, we got Darnold, so we may as well get whatever."
If they don't take Trevor Lawrence with the first pick, they're idiots if they don't trade the first pick and get extra, picks.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if they do that, and they're going to have to bring in a coach that the fans are going to feel is going to be good for Sam Darnold, because obviously Gase has not been good for anybody.
Right.
No.
And I think, I mean, as a Jet fan, I haven't given up on Sam Darnold yet because he's still very young. It's only his 3rd season, and if a guy's broken after 2.5, almost the end of 3 seasons,
Geno Smith.
Well, Geno Smith was never Sam Darnold to begin with, though.
True.
But a guy that was
Jets quarterback since Ken O'Brien.
Yeah, pretty much. But if a guy that was projected to be potentially this good is done, at this point, then maybe he was never going to be that great anyway. But
right,
I don't know who you bring in to fix him, but you might be better off just avoiding that problem, because that's just one more. That's just one more delay in getting good. Now we got to fix our quarterback, so that's going to take a year, and we got to have the right guy to do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think they can't keep Darnold and Gase. One of them has to go.
John Donovan says they'll revolt, mass outrage.
Yeah, but then when the games start, we'll come around and hope for the best, like we always do, because we're idiots.
Yeah, well, and then Dave said Jets fans are revolting.
I'll tell you who would be the best
in more ways than one.
I'll tell you who would be the best.
I get the double entendre.
There you go.
Who would be the best Jets head coach, and would work wonders with a Trevor Lawrence.
Rich Kotite?
Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, you know what? I was going to say that's probably where they're probably going to wind up going.
And it would be a great pick for New York, and I think that would be a signal to the Jets organization that, hey, we're gonna pick from a good coaching tree, from somebody who's been successful pretty much, obviously as an offensive, as a college player, but who's really worked his way up and understands how the NFL works today and what it takes. I mean, granted, he's got a lot of talent that he's working with in Kansas City,
and more than likely he'll be coming fresh off his second Super Bowl win in a row at that point. So
if the Jets, I mean, I wish there was. The Jets would be dumb not to go after him.
Right.
I think there's going to be, this is my theory. I think there might be another team that resides in Florida who might be talking to him once the season's over.
Well, it depends. If the Jets steal a win, yeah. So there you go. And the Jags almost actually stole a win, but we'll get to that in a second. Just to give you a little information that you asked for before, Ryan Fitzpatrick has been on 8 teams.
8. Okay.
8 teams. And Josh McCown has been on 12 teams. 12 teams, yeah.
That's his total wins as well, isn't it?
13 if you count the Hartford Colonials. But if we're just going to NFL teams, 12.
Right. So, I didn't realize he was that old.
There you go. Yeah, Josh McCown was drafted in 2002, and he's been on 12 teams. So in 18 years, he's been on 12 teams.
It's not so bad.
There you go. His longest tenure on any team was 3 years. When that was his first team. He was drafted by the Cardinals. So, but that's McCown anyway. Ryan Fitzpatrick.
There we go.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, 4 years for the Bills. That was his longest tenure.
Yeah.
So, but then there you
go.
Well,
listen, it doesn't look good for the Jets the rest of the way out.
No,
necessarily, as far as their schedule goes. We might have 2 Week 17 games involving New York/New Jersey teams that actually might have some meaning. Yeah. One, you might be hoping to win if you're a Giants fan. The other, you're definitely hoping you lose, even against the hated Patriots.
Right.
If you're a Jets fan, that's going to be
rooting for the Pats.
I may have to take a sedative and sleep through that Sunday.
You might, yeah.
Because I don't know how. I don't think I can actually watch that game.
It's I think it's I wouldn't, but or maybe you're that excited to see what happens with Trevor Lawrence, and what happens. But let me ask you this to wrap that up. Do they lose? I'll ask each of you. Do they lose all 16 games?
It's very, very possible. I mean, I would say there's a greater chance of them losing the rest of their games than winning one. I think there's probably a 20% chance of them winning a game.
Gotcha. Stealing a game from somebody that's looking past them.
Yeah. However, they're the Jets.
That's that hand signal.
If they're going to,
if they could do something to ruin getting the first pick, then they'll do it.
That would be very Jets-esque.
And what would be the most painful way would be beating the Patriots Week 17. On a last-second field. It's just going to be rip the heart out of the chest because that's how they do it.
It'll be, we beat the Patriots. Shit.
Yeah. They'll be it'll be some fluky play.
Right.
It'll be a kneel down at the goal line and he'll gurley it and fall into the end zone.
Exactly.
Yeah. The Jets lose to the Patriots and 2 months later trade the first pick or the second pick in the NFL draft to the
Patriots,
to the New England Patriots, for 7 pounds of Dunkin' Donuts coffee and
Amendola
and
a bologna sandwich,
lasagna recipe.
And as Belichick is fond of saying, some charcuterie.
That's right.
Amendola and a tray of charcuterie.
There you
go. Actually, that's who the backup punter is for the Patriots.
Joey Charcuterie.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're bad. I think they'll lose every game, but man, this is a ripe setup for them to
they've got a
Jets-esque.
They've got a tough schedule. The Patriots probably being, and the Patriots looked pretty good last week. They could be a team also fighting for a playoff spot. So
yeah, well, I mean, you got Raiders, the Seahawks, you got the Rams.
I mean,
their other winnable game, you got the Browns. They're probably not going to beat the Browns, and then you got the Pats.
Right.
And look, New England's looking for a quarterback too. So I mean, if Bill Belichick could do it, he'd have Trevor Lawrence in there for Week 17 this year.
Yeah.
Somehow he would figure out how to make that work. But don't you think for 1 second that Bill Belichick is going over and over and over again in his mind how the hell he can wind up getting Trevor Lawrence one way or another?
Of course.
You know, I mean, it's definitely happening. And I would not be, no matter where that pick falls, I would not be one bit surprised. It would not shock me one bit to see Trevor Lawrence playing for the Patriots next year. It wouldn't shock me.
It'd be a tough sell. I don't know if they have enough to offer, really. But if you get somebody who's going to take, first-round picks for the next 4 years or something like that, if they're really going to stretch it out, you might entice. I mean, look, it'll be the Jets or the Jags, right?
I think if I'm Trevor Lawrence coming from Clemson, I want to play for the Jags, especially if they can get a new coach.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But we shall see.
We shall see. It's intriguing.
It is intriguing. What
for a team that could go 0-16?
It's
the most intriguing 0-16 team in the last 15 years.
They are very.
Hey, look, being a Knicks fan, the most exciting two things that have happened in the last 5 years is the possibility of them getting the first pick and taking what's his name from Duke, or the fleeting moment that we thought Kevin Durant was going to come there, but no. Instead, the only player drafted from Duke, a New York team, was Daniel Jones.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Dave just said, just looked at the remaining schedule. The Jags are not winning another game. No, they're not. And John Donovan just said the Jets will never trade the pick to the Pats. Well, I mean, if they win another game, they might not have to. The Jags might. So, but it depends on what the Pats are going to give them back. So,
yeah.
Again, if it's Danny Amendola and Joey Charcuterie, they might actually pull the plug on that one and go for it. So. Well, this has been our news segment of The Quest for 16.
Can't talk about the Jets without... Well, look, at least they have a goal.
Yeah, they do.
They have something to play for.
The Quest for 16.
And there you have it.
There we go.
So let me ask you, that was your son, and whose voice was that?
That was me.
That was you. I thought so. Actually, I knew that. I was just.
It's a family. We listen. Any football team that needs a custom, you're a loser fanfare. We are available.
You and your son are available,
and we have very, very reasonable
rates.
That's right.
Gotta love it. All right. Well, that brings us to
Spotify royalties are just going to kick in any moment.
Any minute.
Wait till you get that 25-cent deposit from CD Baby. It's fantastic.
I won't spend it all in one place.
Get me started on those assholes.
I don't even want to. Come on, you love it. 25 cents. That's it.
Oh God, you get nothing from these streaming services. It's horrible.
Yeah.
That sucks. All right. Well, how about some other games? The Titans over the Colts, 45-26. Derrick Henry had 178 yards and three TDs.
He's pretty good.
3 TVs.
He's pretty good.
Is he going to be the MVP?
Horn that he has. That I think
exactly right.
Could he win the MVP? Could we have a non-quarterback MVP?
It could be the year.
I think he could, but I unfortunately the voting does not seem to go in that direction.
It's
very
always
often,
a quarterback, really. We got to check and see who the last non-quarterback was to win the MVP. But yeah, no, it was just a crazy game for Derrick Henry. But I mean, Rivers actually had a better game than Tannehill did. Tannehill only had 221 yards with a TD and no picks. Rivers had 295 yards, 2 TVs. I keep saying TVs. 2 TDs and one. He only had 1 pick. But again, Rivers had a better game than him. But I mean, seriously, which team is better? I mean, the Colts go into Tennessee and beat the Titans. The Titans go into Indianapolis and beat the Colts. Where
it's just the schizophrenic nature of the league this year. It's like the Raiders almost, they're world beaters. Then they take a dump. It's just, with the exception of Kansas City and the Steelers, every team has had 1 or 2 or 3 games where they've just been like, how did you lose that?
Right.
And now the Packers look like world beaters again. The Seahawks, they beat the Eagles. Wow. I mean, I don't know. I'm not
impressively though.
Not impressive. No, not at all. And
Yeah.
and you know,
The Vikings just squeaked by the Panthers.
3 minutes
Sunday.
into the Tampa Bay Bucks game, you know, everybody on the radio, because I was listening to it on the radio, was just like, "Oh my God, this is!" And then and they wound up losing by 3,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a chance to win it. So I mean, it's just like, come on.
I mean, does this really give anybody a great degree more confidence in the Titans, or conversely, the Colts, they're really not that good? I mean, we kind of think the same thing about each of these teams. It's just it was a good week for one and a bad week for the other.
Last year, the Titans sort of went on a heater at the end of the season, and this game had remnants of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Feed Derrick Henry. Their defense sort of stepped up, and enough ball control passing to win. They've got the talent to do it. They can win some games. I think Tennessee's a better team than the Colts are.
Our resident stats looker upper, Adrian Peterson in 2011. That was
I
the last
knew it
non-quarterback.
was Peterson. I didn't know what year it was.
Yeah.
Last non-quarterback to win the MVP award. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
But it's
that's because he not only led the league in rushing and was the Vikings' most dominant player, but he was also the second leading scorer on the Timberwolves that year.
He was.
Stat that gets buried a lot.
Yeah, it does get buried.
He didn't start, but he came in like within 5 minutes of the start of the game and
came in off the bench. A lot of traveling violations, but other than that, he was.
Like I said, and the Vikings, they just squeaked by the Panthers 28-27. But they started the season 1-5 and they went 4-1 in their last 5, and they're now in second place in the division. So
I mean, the Packers should win that division, but I think the Vikings are better than the Bears.
So
I guess if anybody's stock, did the Bears stock drop the most?
Yeah,
based on this past week. I mean,
kind
of going, they're
done.
Not good.
I think
the Packers just ran all over him. It was 41-25, and it really wasn't even that close.
No.
I mean, Rodgers only had 211 yards, but he had 4 TDs. The running game was like crazy. They had 180 yards on the ground, over 180 yards on the ground.
Yeah,
Aaron Jones had 90.
He was efficient.
He was very efficient. Here's some stats for you, Packers, Bears. I'm going to throw these at you really quick. Packers, Bears all-time record, they've played 201 games, Packers and Bears. The Packers are leading it 100-95. They had 6 ties. At one point, the Bears led the series 81 games to 57 games. Green Bay's gone 43-14 since. So
and in that span, there has been 19,612 heart attacks at either Lambeau Field or Soldier Field.
Soldier Field, right? Exactly.
Yes, and 1,700 sausage choking incidents.
Yeah, I was going to say each one of those heart
per
attacks
Sunday.
Each one of those heart attacks was accompanied by a crushed sausage and pepper sandwich.
Exactly. And
my bratwurst
and a fallen cheese hat.
Absolutely. But Aaron Rodgers' record versus the Bears, he's 18-5 with 48 TDs and 104 quarterback rating.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yes.
I mean, this just in, he's pretty good.
This just in, Aaron Rodgers is pretty good. Yeah. And speaking of pretty good, Aaron Rodgers has thrown 10 interceptions in 43 games since 2018. Conversely, Tom Brady has thrown 11 interceptions in 12 games this year. So, now granted, that's this year, and they're not the same quarterback. But Aaron Rodgers, only 10 interceptions in 43 games in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, but the thing about Brady and this offense is like they're not. They have a lot of talent, but they're not really doing what he does best, like they used to in New England.
They're the Clippers. They're the Clippers.
They're going downfield a lot, and that's not really his best game.
2012,
which
2012 he was wrong.
Me.
Sorry,
there we go.
Adrian Peterson, 2012, not 2011. Sorry, thanks, Dave.
Well, that's why do we even do a show? But I don't understand what Bruce Arians is doing. Like, what you've got the GOAT, right? And you've got talent. Why are you not playing into that and putting him in that best position to do what he does well?
I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here and say that the Bucks don't have the best coaching staff. Because
that's fair to say,
who goes into a game against Kansas City and says, "You know what? I'm going to start the game. playing man-to-man defense against Tyreek Hill. And after he scorches me for 2 touchdowns, I'm going to continue to play that same man-to-man defense.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, look.
And I'm going to throw deep a lot with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill had 203 yards receiving in the first quarter.
Yes. Tom Brady doesn't have his usual, guys you never heard of before coming out of the backfield for 8-yard passes 20 times a game.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he needs. It's that California offense. He needs to dump it off to open up the vertical game. And look, he hit Evans. I mean, it wasn't like he had a horrible game. Yeah, he threw 2 picks. That's great. The Bucs defense just put the offense in a hole, and they're not the team that's going to come back from 20 points down and win a game. They almost did.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting stat for you. In the air, between both teams, between the Chiefs and the Bucs, 807 yards passing.
I heard it was over 800 the other day. That's insane.
That's like the Dolphins and the Chargers in like 83,
807 yards.
Yeah.
Mahomes had 462. Brady had 345. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, those are pretty good fantasy numbers there.
You think?
Yeah.
That was crazy. But yeah, that's the way the NFL is right now. I mean, really quick on the cards. What's up with the cards?
People are starting to figure them out.
I think that's got to be the reason.
I think they're game planning against Murray a little better, and they're trying to keep him in the pocket and making him throw to take advantage of the fact that if you put people in his face, especially 6'4" defensive linemen with their hands up, he's not as effective.
Right.
And he's a rookie. So, you throw adversity at him and it's going to fluster him sometimes.
I mean, look, everybody was talking about him as an MVP runaway 3 weeks ago. So he's a hell of a player. And I think he's exceeded a lot of people's expectations for where he's at right now. But I think the Cards are just one of those teams that they're the Cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for them to continue to be successful, you're going to have to fine tune their game plan a little bit more to fit around what he does well.
They're the Colts. They're there's a lot of teams that fall into that category of who knows. Yeah. Who will the real fill in the blank please show up? Well, you don't know.
I would almost put the Seahawks into that, but they're a little bit better than that.
The Seahawks, a little bit better. Yeah, the Seahawks, the Rams, the Titans, the Colts. I mean, there's a list of about 10 teams that fall into that category.
You know what? There's a couple of teams at the top. There's a handful of teams at the bottom, most of them in the NFC East, and then everybody else is just, hey, who's going to win the last game?
Yeah. Although, I mean, with the Seahawks, you could say, well, there's a little bit of a history of success there, recent success. So at least they kind of have, and having a veteran quarterback obviously helps in that. We've been here before. We've been through adversity before.
Right.
Arizona, has had, I guess, some success recently, but not with Kyler Murray.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a taller hill to climb over there.
Sure. But and speaking of the Seahawks, they beat the Eagles and it was 23-17. But let's look at that really quick. There's been a big question the last couple of days. I've been listening to this since the game on Monday night, from people betting on the game. The line was 6.5. There was 12 seconds left in the game when Wentz heaved the ball into the end zone and that ridiculous ricochet catch they made and caught and scored the touchdown. Now, at that point, they were down 8. All right. Normally, rule of thumb has to tell you, okay, well, first of all, 12 seconds left. Even if you get the ball back on the onside kick, you're not scoring another touchdown in 12 seconds. But let's try it. We got to try it, right? Otherwise, we're losing anyway. So, rule of thumb's got to tell you, kick the extra point, make it a 7-point game, and then go on to the onside kick. They went for the 2-point conversion, and and Sanders just waltzed into the end zone on the 2-point conversion, making the score a 6-point difference. I mean, obviously everybody that was betting on the game was like throwing up red flags. What the hell? It was a 6.5 point was the line. I'm obviously not taking any conspiracy
Pete,
theory on
Pete
this, but
Rose
it's
wasn't
really
playing,
weird.
so I don't think there was anything shady going on. The players don't give they don't. Those guys don't know what the
what was
freaking
Doug
spread
Peterson's
is.
point of? I mean, I know all he wants is 2-point conversions. If he could do a 2-point conversion from the 50-yard line on a 4th down,
Right.
he's going to do it. But it just made no sense to do that. Then it almost makes you think.
Well, I mean, I think his thought process is that if you get the 2-point conversion, if by some miracle you score, you win.
Right. Unless he was just helping all the Philly fans that bet on Philly. If he makes this a 2-point conversion, they
Trust
all
me,
won.
Philly fans were not betting on Philly.
This is true. Well, the smart ones anyway.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting to kind of look at it because you're right. If you just kind of do the math, barring a miracle,
And it made no sense.
it doesn't really do anything for you.
Yeah, if they were 9 points down, of course, I understand. I get it, definitely. But, it made no sense to do that then. So,
Yeah. And look, you could have that, sort of that same decision, if you will, if you do get the miracle touchdown. And then you go, all right, well, now we go for 2 and get the win instead of, kicking the extra point.
Right. Well, yeah, that's what everybody was saying on the game that night. But
Right.
it just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
I think people don't have enough to do. This is what they're. I mean, it's just that was kind of a boring game.
Oh, it was definitely. In the beginning of the game, I was like, I literally turned and started watching this paint dry on the side of the wall. But that was more interesting.
On First Take in the morning on ESPN, they've been, for whatever reason, they've been talking about Carson Wentz and the Eagles all the time.
Yeah.
And, and look, both he and the Eagles have kind of fallen from grace. This was a team that won a Super Bowl just a few years back.
Right. Yeah, but he didn't win it for them.
No, and I don't think they would have won it had he not been hurt.
Absolutely not. They would not have won that game without Nick Foles.
Look,
they would not.
He doesn't.
I don't know. He looked pretty good before he got hurt.
Yeah,
well,
but
that's my point. Is that I mean, he's really fallen from being in contention for an MVP a couple years ago. Is this all Wentz? Is this the offensive line and the coaching and the talent, or is it a combination of both? Because Wentz just seems like he is granted he's under pressure a lot and he doesn't have the weapons he once had.
Right.
But he just seems like a guy who's again regressed. He's just making bad mistakes.
Yeah, he really is, and he's the most sacked quarterback in the league.
And part of that is, I understand.
It's not his fault, but
sometimes it is.
Some of it is.
Sometimes it is. And that's coaching as well. You got to run an offense where you can get the ball out of the guy's hands real quick.
Right.
But the Eagles are just bad.
Yeah, that's definitely the question that's been bouncing around: is how much is it him, and how much is it the offensive line, and how much is it the play calling, like you just said, that doesn't get the ball out of his hands, and he ends up taking a sack, and how much of it is him not getting the ball, throwing it away when he has an opportunity and ends up taking a sack, trying to do too much, which it's always, I think, whatever the percentage, and I certainly wouldn't be able to break it down, but whatever that kind of percentage is, it always is going to, I think, look worse for the quarterback.
Yeah, of course.
Especially when you were great. And they go,
when you signed a huge contract. And
right. And they go, he was a guy who, when he had all the weapons around him, he was great. Well, that's probably a bunch of guys. You could be great when you have a good line and you have a lot of weapons.
Look, Aaron Rodgers is really good. If you put Aaron Rodgers on the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm sorry. He'd be putting up numbers. I mean, I'm not saying he'd be better than Mahomes, but in some ways I think his passing yards would.
Yeah. It could be.
I mean, imagine Aaron Rodgers with Travis Kelce, that offensive line, that coach, that offensive scheme, and Tyreek Hill and the 7 Pro Bowl running backs that they have and the other 2. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's.
I would love to see it.
It's interesting to think about. I think I think to some degree, though, Aaron Rodgers is the mature version of Patrick Mahomes.
Well, he's not. He's mobile. Don't get me wrong. Rodgers is, I think, the best balance of being able to run, get out of pressure, and get rid of the ball.
Right.
And obviously he's a lot older than Mahomes, but I think Mahomes is a better athlete and is becoming one of the one of the best passers of all time. But he's not quite the pure passer that Rodgers is. But at the end of the day, if we, 15 years from now, if we redo our top 10 quarterbacks, you might have Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes creep further up that list.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree.
I mean, it's all about Mahomes staying healthy, and if he can keep this talent around him, I mean,
yeah,
scary.
I agree.
It's scary.
Well,
might be a great age to watch football. At least
it might
if
be
you're a Kansas City fan.
Definitely. So, should we maybe do some picks now?
Sure.
Yeah,
Let's
do
find
some
out.
picks.
Beaten by the coin.
Beaten by the coin.
I'm sure I'll lose to the coin.
No one wants to be beaten by the coin.
All right. Well, gosh, I got to do the math on the fly here. Quick recap of last year. Last week we had 7 games. Congratulations to you there, Johnny. We know you're going to win. 7-0. So,
Pretty impressive.
It is impressive. So
When you got the Giants and Jets as 2 of them, though, although you did pick the Giants to win.
you picked the Giants to win. Well, we all picked the Giants to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We all got that.
So Johnny now is at 38-8, and is pretty much running away from this.
I got credit to the gnome back there. He's the he's the brains behind the outfit.
Harry, your only loss, good week for you. Your only loss was the New York Jets.
Yeah, I could have had, oh, well, I had to take a chance. 6-1.
Listen,
6-1 not
you're
bad.
28-18 now, and that's so you were so now you're you're in good shape actually. Yours truly lost with Dallas. Goddamn Cowboys. So I'm 31-15, and the coin went 4-3. So 25-21 now.
Very
so
coin-esque.
a little farther over 500 for the coin, but
There you go.
Harry, you made up some ground, and
Yeah, only 3 behind you.
and ahead of the coin. So
Yeah,
put some distance between you and the coin, which
is really all I care about.
that's all any of it. Well, Johnny doesn't have to worry about it, but so pretty good week for all of us.
There you go.
And boo coin.
Dude, I think I did not make my own picks the first week, and I think it was not a good select. I think the coin picked for me on the first week. So
Yeah,
I think it was like 2 and.
I think it was 2 and
3.
2 and 3. Yeah.
2 and 3. Yeah.
oh yeah, we had 5 picks that week.
I wasn't. So I mean, yeah,
So,
probably
could be a game or 2 higher.
Yeah.
Could be the difference between you and I at the end of the
Could
season.
be right there. Yeah, so.
Week 1/3.
week 1.
All right, so let's look at these upcoming games. We got the Raiders at the Jets. I think we know who everyone's picking there. Anybody want to take the Jets? Harry, you want to pick the Jets?
Nope, I've done my service to the Jets, karma, and I'm done.
Raiders coming off a big dump, so you got to think they're going to rebound. And they're playing the Jets, and the Jets are terrible. So, all right, I got to get the coin.
Yeah.
So let's see if the coin is bold and likes the color green. Coin says tails,
Coin's with us.
which is the away team, so we all go for the Raiders. All right.
There you go.
Giants at the Seahawks. I'll let you guys pick this one, being the Giant fans that you are.
I mean, I'm going to go with Seattle.
Yeah, I don't think you. I think you got to go with the Sea Chickens on this one.
Yeah, it's intriguing, but
Yeah, I mean, between I think with Daniel Jones in there, they would have been hard pressed to play a good game. But with Colt McCoy in there, yeah, you got to go Seahawks.
yeah,
Colt
Seahawks.
Colt McCoy. When you name a kid Colt McCoy, he's either going to be a quarterback or a porn star, or both,
or a rancher.
Yeah.
What was that? Pew pew pew.
Pew, pew, pew. All right, coin says heads. So
Coin's taking Seahawks too.
All right, so there we go. The football team versus the Steelers.
This football team, and this is
This would be the game that the Steelers lose.
now. Remember, this is also a Monday afternoon game, and it was from a Sunday day game. So we wind up with an extra pick this week because of scheduling. So there you go. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll take the Steelers.
You think? Yeah, Steelers.
Okay. And the coin says heads.
Steelers.
There we go. So far, boring and all in agreement.
Well, boring and all in agreement.
All right, Buffalo visits the West Coast to take on them 49ers, who, boy, talk about a team that is up and down.
Yeah, really.
They're still not completely healthy, right? The 49ers. So
No.
Buffalo, you got to. I think you got to give it to them, right? They're for real.
Yeah. I mean, the way they played last week. And the last couple weeks, actually.
All right. Anybody want the Niners? Going once?
No, I don't
Going
think so.
twice? All right, come on, Coin. Coin says heads.
Oh, they're
You
ready.
like the whole team?
No. Coin says Coin's taking the Niners.
Coin says I'll take the Niners.
Yeah.
And then we got Cowboys against them Ravens in
Cowboys and
Baltimore.
Ravens. Yeah, that was supposed to be tomorrow night, and now it's going to be Monday night.
Now it's going to be Monday night. Boy,
Do we know who's playing quarterback for the Ravens? I'm guessing that.
the protocol's 4 days, right?
Yeah.
Something
So-
like that, yeah. So Lamar Jackson should be back in by then.
I think if Lamar Jackson plays, the Ravens have to win this game.
Honestly, I think if RG3 plays,
Yeah.
I mean, the Ravens are home. They're in Baltimore. They're not in Dallas. So
Yeah, and Dallas just hasn't had enough.
No.
Talk about up and down. Well, a good game. They haven't had enough of those good games.
right, and we said how look how the Ravens with RG3 played the Steelers today. You know, which is obviously a much better team than the Cowboys at this point.
All right, so Baltimore it is. I will not take the Cowboys. And the coin says heads. So they like the Ravens. There we go.
Well, we missed the game.
Coin's got who?
Chiefs Broncos
When is that being played?
Sunday night.
Yeah. I'm getting fitted for my. I'm gonna play quarterback as number 10.5.
Is that in
It's in Kansas City.
in Kansas City? Okay.
So does anybody want the Broncos?
Interesting. I could pick up a game here. I'll just
By
put
taking the Broncos?
No, I'll just put K's for all of us.
There you go.
And then here we go, Coin. One more chance to be a hero. It comes up tails. So they're going with
They're going with the Broncos. Look at
Coin's got more faith in your hometown team than you do, Mr. Lug Nutz.
Well, you know what? He's taking the Chiefs, but he's playing quarterback. So
That's right.
Oh, yeah, that's
I'm gonna make sure the Chiefs cover the spread. Don't worry.
there you go.
Take the under as well.
Well, maybe the Chiefs cover the over themselves.
Just some pick sixes, yeah.
There
I got to
you
throw a touchdown one way or the other, probably to a Chiefs player.
To a Chiefs player, yeah.
all right. So there we go. So the Coin's got two. We're all in lockstep, so none of us are going anywhere with respect to each other.
With respect to each other, we have 6 picks that are all the same.
Yeah, and there's really no reason for Harry or I to pick anyone other than who you pick because there's no way we're catching you. So we're all just better off maintaining and hope that the Coin does things like it did this week,
Right.
picking the Broncos against Kansas City, and then we just get farther away from the quarter here.
They picked the Broncos and they picked the Niners too. Those are the two.
Yeah,
okay.
so that's our ticket
that
to
Niners
success, Harry.
game. That Niners game. They're one of those teams, the Niners. I can't figure them out. I don't even know.
That could be a win for them, definitely.
Yeah, and I don't even know who's playing anymore for them. It's just like who's hurt, who's on COVID protocol. I mean, I don't know.
Exactly.
I mean,
Well, there you go. Beaten by the Coin. Those are our picks.
Very nice.
Beautiful.
Don't
Very
put
nice.
any money on anything, folks.
No.
Don't listen to us.
Well,
Don't listen to us.
listen. If you can find a bet without the spread, just pick who John picks.
Yeah,
The guy's still got less than 10 losses, and we're in week
that's right.
13 for crying out loud.
Yeah,
or week 10 for us.
but
since we didn't start till week
he
3.
is picking the Giants and Jets every week.
This is true.
Yeah.
Giants, Jets, and national games that are pretty much gimmies. So
As
most of
we
the
all
time.
are.
So
Yeah.
I'm no Kreskin, but yeah.
Yeah. But you're doing a little better than Terry Bradshaw.
This is true. I do put my hat on that one. So, all right, folks, why don't we jump into our segment of top 10s? We're going to do our top 10s this week. Top 10 linebackers we're doing this week. Top 10 linebackers in NFL history. We have normally we have 10 for you. Sometimes we have 11 because we have a 10A and 10B. Today we have 12 for you. So you're just going to have to listen and find out why. So we're going to kick it off with number 10. And I think Harry's going to start us off with number 10.
Number 10 is Mr. Chuck Bednarik, who was maybe the quintessential football player in the early days of the NFL. I think he played his entire career with the Philadelphia Eagles. He was a 2-time NFL champion, 8-time Pro Bowler, 10-time first team, and he was part of the NFL's 50th, 70th, and 100th anniversary all-time team. He was a guy who kind of invented the system. He was his parents were Slovak immigrants. He was born and lived in Pennsylvania, and I think he worked for Bethlehem Steel. While
he was playing for the Eagles.
Yeah, exactly. He's famous for one of the most vicious hits, I think, in the history. And look, he was a big dude. He was 6'3", 240 pounds, which for linebackers back in the day was pretty impressive. He was the first player drafted in the 1949 NFL draft. And he played both offense and defense. He played center and linebacker.
Yeah, he played center. I mean, you get beat up in that position.
Yeah, and he was a member of the Eagles NFL championship teams in 49 and 60. So, I mean, he kind of at the beginning and somewhat towards the end of his career. And he was he was just one of those guys who, when you think of tough old school football, I think his name just comes up immediately. And as far one of the best players during that era of the NFL, and certainly I think the best linebacker of that time frame, without a doubt.
I totally agree. Concrete Charlie.
Concrete Charlie, yeah.
Yeah, the epitome of the old school,
right?
Yeah,
defensive guy, no question.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to, meet up with him anywhere at any time.
Would not.
He just looked. There's only one other guy on this list who I think was as intimidating looking. You
ever see his hands?
No, I've never seen his hands.
Totally, yeah. Pictures. Totally, like fingers all broken.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah. Yeah. He was.
And didn't miss any playing time.
Nope.
Because of that.
Nope. He just broke his finger and kept playing.
Broke 2 fingers on that last play. Yeah. Well, you got to go snap the ball.
You got 8 more.
Yeah. I got to go back to work at the steel plant.
Right, exactly.
I mean, the famous hit was against Frank Gifford of the Giants, and he knocked him out of football for a year and a half.
Frank Gifford was out, like on the ground, just not moving. It's just done. Year and a half. It was such a vicious hit. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, but there you go. Number 10, Chuck Bednarik.
And he sold concrete. That's why he's called Concrete Charlie. He sold concrete in the offseason.
There you go.
Plus he drank it.
Yeah, he drank
concrete. All right, Pete. Why don't you give us 9B?
9B. James Harrison. Pretty good guy. Spent a number. Let's see, had 1, 2, 3 different stints with the Steelers, and that's where he's of course best known. 2002, then from 04 to 12, and then from 2014 to 2017. Spent 2013 in Cincinnati, and then finished up at the end of his career with New England. So 4 times to the Pro Bowl. 4 times in All-Pro, 5 times to the Pro Bowl. 2 Super Bowl wins, 2008 NFL Defensive Player of the Year, and of course, I think he's still the Steelers' all-time sack leader with 84.5, and the 100-yard interception during Super Bowl 43, which is still, I think, the longest defensive play in Super Bowl history. So, that was just an amazing thing. If you got to watch that live, you should feel privileged, because it was a spectacle, and one of those, you were either rooting against him and going, "Why can't someone tackle this giant?" Or you were rooting for him, going, "Come on, another 4 yards." It was a really, I mean, an impressive feat, especially for a guy of his size.
Yeah.
James Harrison was kind of not one of a kind, but of a rare mold, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely was a rare mold. And I think one of the youngest guys on our list, too. If not actually the youngest guy on our list, too. And when we have, but yeah, he was definitely intimidating looking, and it looks like actually an actor. Whatchamacallit? That's been in a few movies. I forget. I was trying to think of who it was, but yeah, no, just crazy good numbers. The first year, I mean, his first stint with the Steelers was his first year he was drafted, but actually he was undrafted. It was a walk-on, right? If I recall.
I think so.
I think that's right.
Yeah, and he didn't play much, and he went to the Ravens for a year, and then he not even went to the Ravens. It was on the practice squad, and he was on the Rain Fire from NFL Europe. Went over there and played the rest of 2003, and then he came back to the Steelers, and that's when he shined. So, but yeah, James Harrison, number 9B on our list. I'll do number 9A. Number 9A is none other than Mr. Ray Nitschke. Ray Nitschke. Raymond Ernest Nitschke. You know me and my middle names. Raymond Ernest Nitschke. He was drafted in the 3rd round with the 36th pick overall in 1958 draft by the Green Bay Packers. Played his whole career with the Green Bay Packers. Won 2 Super Bowls, 1 and 2, obviously. 5-time NFL champion prior to the Super Bowls, 61, 62, and 65 through 67. The last one being, of course, the year they went to the first Super Bowl. Made 1 Pro Bowl in 64. He's a 2-time first-team All-Pro, 5-time second-team All-Pro. He's a member of the 50th anniversary team, 75th anniversary team, the NFL's 60s All-Decade team. He's a member of the Green Bay Hall of Fame. His number 66 is retired, and he's a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, of course. He's just, he in college, he actually lost 4 teeth during a game. Just gone out of his mouth. 14 during the game.
The dental plan was different back then.
That definitely different back then. He was such violent hits and just a tough player. And he was good too. He intercepted passes and recovered fumbles. So he wasn't just a tackling machine, but just a crazy tough player. From that era back then, late 50s into the 60s, and just crazy. So those Green Bay teams were insane back then with defense. So. Yeah, well, there you go. Number 9A, Ray Nitschke. Harry, why don't you bring us to number 8?
Number 8 is none other than Mr. Ted Hendricks, who was a 4-time Super Bowl champion. Started his career with the Baltimore Colts, won a Super Bowl 5 with the Baltimore Colts, and then proceeded to win 3 more Super Bowls with the Oakland Raiders. And he was drafted as a defensive end, converted to a linebacker, and he was one of these guys who sort of reinvented the position a little bit. He was big for a linebacker. He was super tall. He was a great pass rusher, but he was able to drop back, and he had great lateral movement for a big guy. And again, was just one of those really hard-nosed football players who seemed to be around forever. It's like he played in 3 eras almost. And was part of the NFL's 75th anniversary all-time team and 100th anniversary all-time team, and part of the 1970s and 80s all-decade team. So, and a hell of a college player as well. He's just one of these guys who, when you think of the 70s and even the early 80s, he was just one of those players who was one of the best to ever play the position.
The Stork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I would say his height never seemed like a novelty. I mean, he was obviously tall for a linebacker, but like Ed Too Tall Jones,
Right.
that was very noticeable and very, very much a part of who he was, or at least, in the by the broadcast teams and stuff.
Sure.
But Hendricks was just, he's tall, but he was just so darn good that it was never really the focus.
Yeah, he was. I remember him. I remember him kind of being. He looked like a big tight end playing. He looked like Rob Gronkowski playing linebacker.
Yeah.
But it was his arm, his wingspan. I mean, I bet his wingspan was probably close to 7 foot. He just seemed to always. I just picture him playing in Oakland Coliseum with those arm pads on, just knocking down every pass anybody ever tried.
Hand up.
Yeah.
Hand up. That's it. It was crazy.
He was a hell of a tackler too.
Yeah, he was.
A great reason to be, a Raiders fan, even if they weren't, if they were like your secondary team, right? That was the glory days, and there were a lot of people in this country, no matter where they lived. You might have been a fan of Team X, but you were also a fan of the silver and black. And Hendricks is one of those guys that you could point to and go, "That's one of the reasons why."
Yeah,
and also, like, it's like it's almost like you crossed over. It's like an old school player in the new school era back in the early '80s. Playing from the '60s to the '80s.
He played a long time, and he moved from strong side to weak side linebacker. The Raiders went from a 4-3 to a 3-4, which I think helped him a little bit. Longevity wise, but he had a long career, 69 to 83. I guess it seemed longer though for some reason.
It definitely seemed longer. Yeah.
It was 3. I mean, he played in 3 decades. Maybe that's why.
This is probably why. Yeah. So, well, there you go.
And rough too.
Oh,
a much rougher game. Those were.
They were.
We always talk about the old school players. That that is the equivalent of maybe like a 16-year career for a linebacker these days. Yeah, which would be a really long time.
The busiest person on the Raiders back then was their parole officer,
and their lawyer.
Those of you listening, we're not lying.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right, number 8, Ted Hendricks. All right. Pete, why don't you tell us who number 7 is?
All right, number 7, you might be sensing something of a pattern here. The team with the greatest linebackers of all time, I think you could say the Steelers.
You could probably say that.
Yeah, I think, and this guy was one of them, Jack Ham. With the Steelers, 71 to 82, his whole career. 8 times an All-Pro, 8 times to the Pro Bowl. 1, 2, 3, 4 championships, part of the Steel Curtain defense, 75 Defensive Player of the Year, Hall of Fame in 1988, and on the NFL 100 All-Team, as well as a couple others, I think. Fast, could do pretty much everything. One of the most well-rounded or complete, you might say, linebackers that ever played the game. A guy who forced a lot of turnovers too. I think 52 or 53 turnovers throughout his career, and a big reason why the Steel Curtain was as great as they were. And a nasty-looking guy, just a guy you didn't want to go anywhere near.
He looked cute compared to his partner in crime, though.
Let's look at him again. There you go.
Yeah, he was. I guess he was the handsome one.
Well, he had more teeth.
Yeah. So
that I think one of the top 2 linebacking chorus in the history of the NFL. With that.
Oh yeah,
and maybe the best. People talk about the Bears defense in '85, but that's Steelers defense.
The Steel Curtain was insane. It was just,
yeah. I think they're the second best linebacking core of all time. I do think that the '80s Giants linebacking core of Banks and Carson and Taylor were better, but those Steelers teams were incredible.
Yeah, they were. They're the top 1 and 2 as far as I'm concerned, definitely. So, well, there you go.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Number 7, Jack Ham. I'll take number 6. Number 6 is none other than Mr. Dick Butkus. Dick Butkus. Richard Marvin Butkus, to be exact.
Of course, if we're going to be formal about it. Look at that. Nothing says linebacker more than that.
Right there.
He left enough room in his face mask just so somebody can punch him if they wanted to.
and he wanted them to. That's the thing.
Go ahead. Make my day.
He encouraged it.
Yeah.
So, but Dick Butkus, he was drafted in the NFL draft in '65 in the 3rd pick overall. round one. He was drafted in the AFL draft too, but obviously he went to the NFL. He played his entire career with the Bears, 65 through 73. Short career, 9 years, 9 seasons. But, he wanted to get into acting. So that was the time to do so. But just a crazy, crazy good numbers. An insane, tough guy, really. Eight-time Pro Bowler. Except for his last year, every year he played. 6-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 2-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year, 69-70, 75th anniversary team, 100th anniversary team, 60s All-Decade team, 70s All-Decade team. His number 51 in Chicago's retired. He was Lineman of the Year in 64. That was for college. And he in Big Ten Most Valuable Player in 63. He went to He went to Illinois for college and shined there as well. But and of course he's in the College Football Hall of Fame and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But I think the thing that is his resume. Let's put it this way: his resume is staggering. And when you think about it, but that's just his nicknames. The Animal, the Enforcer, the Maestro of Mayhem, the Robot of Destruction. Those are his nicknames were a thing of beauty, basically. But his NFL career is nothing short of sensational. He's an 8-time Pro Bowler, and he only played 9 seasons. He same as my other guy. He Mr. Ray Nitschke. Which is he picked up where Ray Nitschke was leaving off. Not obviously in the same team, but in the same division. He did jump on fumbles and picked off passes as well. So, but he was the first ballot Hall of Famer at 79, and just a crazy good and fun to watch in movies too. So,
yeah, and he really showed that the football persona was certainly not all that he was. If you look at Mike Ditka, who, has also done a little bit of acting, but he's always kind of been that persona, right? The tough guy with the hair. And, Butkus was way more than that, off the field when he became an actor.
They played together, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
So, he showed that football persona was not all that he was or needed to be. And that was kind of cool. I mean, I can't tell you what his best acting, but I mean, he was on Coach, and he did a couple of movies.
He was really good at being Dick Butkus.
He was good at being Dick Butkus.
Yeah, but not always Dick Butkus, the maniacal robot assassin or whatever his nickname was.
No,
the Animal, the Enforcer, the Maestro of Mayhem,
or whatever.
He was
very much
special,
more than that.
Right. He was good on a very special episode of Blossom.
He was. Yeah.
Aren't they? Well, weren't they all very special?
Yeah. Especially, yeah.
And we have a grievance here. Dave from the Craft Beer Podcast is just number 6. He should be higher. The man made Lombardi admit he was wrong.
I disagree. I think he should be lower, but anyway, he was great, but he wouldn't be able to play in today's game at linebacker.
No, but I mean, when he played, crazy.
He was great. Yeah, in that era, he was great.
So, all right, that was it. Number 6, Dick Butkus. Harry, why don't you take us to number 5?
Number 5 is none other than number 55, Junior Seau. I would say on this list, Junior Seau was maybe one of 3 or 4 guys that jumped out to me as just standing head and shoulders above the rest of the crowd during his playing days. Played for 19 seasons. Obviously, his prime years were with the Chargers. 12-time Pro Bowler. 12-time Pro Bowler in an era of really great linebackers. He was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 92. He was part of the NFL's 100th anniversary all-time team and the NFL 1990s all-decade team. Got close with the Patriots towards the end, and he was really athletic. He was just an insatiable tackler. He had over 1,800 tackles in his career, 56 and a half sacks, 18 interceptions. I mean, he was without a doubt one of the best defensive players to ever play the game. Unfortunately, I think he had a tragic end to his life as a result of, I think, some chronic traumatic head injuries that he obviously came upon by playing football. And hopefully hopefully his legend will go on to help us understand this and prevent it. But, for him to take his own life at the age of 43, it was just one of those things you're just like, man, this is sad. And I think he just dealt with a lot of uncomfort and pain over in his post-playing years. And but he was one of the best, without a doubt.
Yeah. That was only a few years after he stopped playing. We played football for 20 years.
Yeah. 20 years. Yeah, and that's, we talk about, Butkus played 9 years and it was a different era. For somebody to play linebacker for 20 years, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it definitely is.
He was really athletic.
Yeah.
And a guy who prided himself, I think, on really being at the top of his game. But there's a great documentary on Junior Seau, and the head injuries definitely changed his personality and changed him in a lot of ways. But one of
the silver lining of all that is that there was a lot of attention that came to the fact that these guys, and it wasn't just one guy here and a couple of guys there. It was a lot of players that were suffering from these brain injuries over the period of time. And
and I think
his case in particular brought a lot of light to that and brought a lot of attention to that.
It definitely did. Yeah.
Well, the whole league has changed. I mean, the way people tackle is different now. It's taken a generation to really make that change, but we had to do something. It's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate these kind of cases to bring light.
And I think we're still going to see more people. I think the silver lining, like you said, was that the tragedy of his life finally brought this issue to light, and they were able to shine a bigger spotlight on this as an issue that I think a lot of football players are dealing with.
Yeah, and he's not the first. Unfortunately, he's not the first player diagnosed with CTE post. On our lists, even on our top tens.
Well, and obviously the NFL didn't really want a lot of this coming out at the time, and that's a whole discussion for another time. But like Pete said, at least the silver lining is that this brought this to a point where changes were made and are continuing to be made, and that's a good thing.
And I think it was McMahon who was real vocal about it and sort of really forced the NFL into creating the fund, right? The healthcare fund to take care of people. Yeah. So, maybe he was, I don't want to say inspired, but given a little bit of courage to speak out because of the plight of Junior Seau and other players as well. But
sure, it's a shame and it sucks. But like you said, if there is a silver lining, that's it.
It was not for naught.
Right. Well, there you go. Number 5, Junior Seau. Pete, why don't you bring us to number 4?
Number 4. This is 4B, right? We have 2 number 4s.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. This is the other one, folks. 4B.
4B. Ray Lewis. I looked at a kind of a bunch of different lists sort of for guidance on this rather than just picking off the top of my head, which would have been we would have had Chad Pennington on this list somewhere if I did that. But
this guy,
Ray Lewis came up really high, number 2, number 3 on a bunch of people's lists.
Yeah, he was.
Number 4B on ours. 13-time Pro Bowler, Ravens, obviously from 96 to 2012, their glory years. 10 times an All-Pro, 2-time Super Bowl champion, MVP in Super Bowl 35, 2-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year. That was 2003. And in fact, I think he's the only linebacker to win Defensive Player of the Year and be the Super Bowl MVP in the same year. And, of course, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What can you say? One of the best who ever played. Also he might have kind of sort of killed a guy, although he Him and his friends got acquitted, and he pleaded guilty to
that. Obviously,
obstruction of justice. Yeah.
Obviously, after last week, killing somebody does not preclude you from being on our list.
No, it does not. It does not. And I mean, look, that soured a lot of people on him, but there's just go back and watch film. There's no denying that Ray Lewis is one of the all-time great linebackers.
Yeah, he definitely is. You know what? I can take you back 20 years ago and was not all too happy with the man and the way he played in Super Bowl 35, mainly because the Giants lost. But that defense of the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, the Giants. You know what? You can say what you want about Kerry Collins, and I think I did. About 20 years ago too.
I've got that's on disc.
That's the forgotten Super Bowl. I don't even like. Did that really happen?
It really did.
It's like it felt like that wasn't even a Giants team. I don't know.
But whatever it is that Dilfer did, and that I screamed that at the time, that game was lost. The Giants beat Minnesota the week before. And it was a week before. There was no a week off there, and it was 41-0. 41-0, and they put up a goose egg on offense in the Super Bowl a week later. The only 7 points they got was on a kickoff return in the second half. So, but that's all on Ray Lewis and that defense from the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, he was just a monster. It was insane.
I think he's the last great linebacker. I mean, I don't think there's been anybody to come close to him since. And in the 2000s, I think he's probably top two, if not the best defensive player on the field during those years.
Sure.
And he just changed the game, and he was the identity of that Baltimore team.
Yeah.
It came through. They were nasty team, man. They made the Detroit Pistons of the 80s seem like ballerinas.
Yeah.
Not that ballerinas aren't tough, because they are. You do that to your feet, and even Jack Lambert's going to have to ice his feet.
He's going to have to ice his feet. So, well, there you go. Number 4B, Ray Lewis. I'll take number 4A. Number 4A is Mr. Michael Singletary. Mike Singletary, folks. Mike Singletary, he was drafted in the second round with the 38th pick of the 81 draft. He played his whole career with the Bears, 81 to 92. And he was a Super Bowl champion in Super Bowl 20, as we just said before. But 10-time Pro Bowler, most of his career, the last 10 years of his career, 83 through 92. 8-time first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro for a year. He was NFL Man of the Year in 1990. 2-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year, 3-time NFC Player of the Year. 2-time Football Digest NFL Linebacker of the Year, when they had that award back in the day when Football Digest was the thing. He's member of the 80s decade team, member of the 100 Greatest Bears of All Time team. And he's also a member of the College Football Hall of Fame and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But, he totaled 1,488 tackles in his career. That's a lot of tackles, and he had 12 fumble recoveries and 7 interceptions to go along with it. So he wasn't just a tackling machine too, but he did have an affinity for ball carriers. In fact, he was quoted as saying, "I had such a negative thought process toward what a running back was that I didn't want anything to do with anyone carrying a football. If you touched a football, I wanted to hit them. It was like the good guy against the bad guy." So, you see, like, bull seeing red. Mike Singletary saw somebody carrying a football, he hit him. That was it. So,
and that was his job.
That was his job.
And part of one of the best defensive teams of all time, I think him and Richard Dent were the leaders of that defense.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Singletary, just known as just an incredible, what they call the football IQ.
Yeah.
A real thinking man's player, as well as a fierce competitor. And what I liked about him is he was quiet. He didn't talk a lot. He didn't yell and scream. He didn't draw attention to himself. He was a real badass, but he didn't, I believe it was Bruce Lee who said, "When you're tough, you don't have to act tough." because you
Yeah.
know you're tough.
Well,
And Singletary was, to me, that kind of guy. He did his talking on the field. He didn't need to trash talk anybody.
No.
I mean, I think in that era, the guy who, to me, was very close both in temperament and in talent was Harry Carson of the Giants.
Yeah.
They just reminded me of each other a lot. Carson, I think, was a little older, but I don't think he was as good as Singletary. Carson had the fortune of playing with some really talented linebacker crew.
Sure.
But, I mean, Harry Carson was probably close to getting on this list, probably top 20 linebackers of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree.
They just reminded me of each other, and watching them play was always just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and he went on to coaching too. I mean, he was a coach for a number of years.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the linebackers coach for the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
49. He was with
right.
the 49ers for 6 years between assistant head coach, linebackers coach, interim head coach, and head coach. Then he went to Minnesota for a little while in the Rams. He's bounced around, done some college and some other academy stuff since. But yeah, no, he was just like you said, Harry, just a quiet guy that was a machine when it came to playing football.
Yeah.
Samurai Mike, big and bold.
There you go. Well, there you go.
As the song goes.
As the song goes, we gotta.
And the first linebacker, I think, to sing in the in a promo video.
Yeah, he definitely was.
I think that was the first. The Super Bowl Shuffle was the first
Super
one,
Bowl
right?
Shuffle. Yes,
Everybody has a low point in their career.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dave from the Beer Podcast said one of the most intelligent people to play the position. He said. So,
Yep. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Number 4A, Mike Singletary. Harry, why don't you bring us to number 3?
Number 3 is none other than Jack Lambert. Now, there was a picture, I think the best Sports Illustrated cover of all time, of Jack Lambert he's peeking through the side of his helmet. Number one, he had his helmet on. He had that Fu Manchu mustache, which came down past his lower lip. And you just saw those 2 fangs because his upper 4 middle teeth were missing. And if there was, as good as Jack Ham was, Jack Lambert, to me, was the epitome of the 1970s football. I mean, just the heart and soul of that Pittsburgh defense. He was a 4-time Super Bowl champion, a 9-time Pro Bowler. He played 11 seasons and was a Pro Bowler 9 times. He was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 76, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in 74, and part of the NFL's 75th and 100th anniversary all-time teams. When I say that this was a guy, now he had a great defense behind him. He had Mean Joe Green. He obviously had his partner in crime in Jack Ham, but he was, without a doubt, the leader of that defense. And another smart football player who just epitomized that town, that era. There you go. Look at that.
Yeah, there it is.
There was black and white copies of that put up on our lockers during football season, my junior year in high school. And that was it. That's all that was the motivation. Just his picture. It made me brush my teeth more often. And it
definitely thought about oral hygiene more often.
Scared the living daylights out of me.
Yeah, but he didn't lose his teeth from oral hygiene.
No, he lost them playing basketball. Yeah. And he used to do, I mean, I don't care who you are. If you see that guy lined up across from you with Mean Joe Green right in front of him, I'm not running there.
No.
He was unbelievable. 1,500 tackles, and out of those, over 1,000 were solo tackles in 9-year span. That's crazy. Nine straight
numbers.
Yeah, he was one of those guys who kind of was a precursor to what was to come with linebackers. Even into the 70s, linebackers, a lot of times you had linebackers playing on running downs, but they'd mix it up. They wouldn't necessarily be dropping back as much on pass plays. He was all over the field. He really was. I think one of the best ever, without a doubt.
but watching him in the 70s in all of those Super Bowls and any other time you could get to watch the Steelers play, it was just, watching all of them on the field. I mean, just, him, Ham, Green, all of them. It was ridiculous. But yeah, that picture, like you said, that was that was the preeminent linebacker photo to scare the bejesus out of anybody that was lined up against him.
Yeah, I mean, in 1976, the Steelers started 1-4, and he called a players-only meeting, and the only thing he said is that the only way we were going to go back to the playoffs is to win every game from here out. And they did. In a 9-game span, the Steelers defense allowed only 2 touchdowns and a total of 28 points, including 5 shutouts.
That's insane. Insane to think of any team. Could you imagine any team, having 2 shutouts in a season right now, let alone 5 in a 9-game span?
28 points in a 5-game span.
That's insane. That's just locked it down. They were done. That was it. Sorry.
Back then, the league was more condensed. There weren't as many, let's say, garbage teams in there. It was unbelievable.
It was crazy.
I still think those Steelers defenses were the best of all time.
Yeah, they
were.
They were crazy. Well, there you go. Number 3, Jack Lambert. All right, folks. Pete, why don't you bring us to number 2?
Number 2, Derek Thomas. I got to admit, not a name that popped up into my head at first, although when I read, I went, of course, Derek Thomas. Kansas City, 10 years from 89 to 99. 6-time All-Pro, 9 times to the Pro Bowl. 89 NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, and 2009 into the Hall of Fame. 126 and a half sacks in 157 NFL starts. That's pretty darn good.
Unbelievable.
He had seven sacks in a single game, which I think is still the NFL record. And unfortunately, his life was cut short, a car accident, and some injuries, which led to him passing away at the age of 33. He would have been probably a little bit higher on this list. And I would say probably the guy who I don't want to give away who's number 1. I think we know who's number 1, but of anyone who ever played, the guy who would maybe remind me the most of number 1.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Was Derek Thomas, just able to do apparently anything he wanted at virtually any time, and an absolute disruptor, able to kind of take over games, and just a brilliant player, an incredible athlete, and number 2 on the list. Yeah,
I think he might have been the best pure pass rusher I've ever seen, and he was the closest to who's the obvious consensus number 1. I think his career was definitely cut short, but I remember that game when what was it, 7? Did you say it was sacks in one game or whatever?
Yeah, 7 sacks in one game.
I think it was a Monday. I think it was a Monday night game, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but really great. And those Chiefs teams back then, they were on the verge. Christian Okoye and some of these other, they were good teams, and he was a big reason for that.
They were right there. They were. I mean, most of it. The Bills and the Oilers were good too at that point too. So.
And he was one of those guys that you would game plan for. You had to take him into account, and other teams would do things to try and stop him. And more often than not, they would fail because he was just that good, or able to figure out how to nullify whatever steps they were taking to sort of nullify him.
Yeah, it was against Seattle, and it was a Monday night game on Veterans Day. So that when he had those 7 sacks, I remember that game. I was just like, I can't believe I'm seeing this.
Yeah, I remember it too. It was crazy.
It
was back to like every play. It was ridiculous.
He was another guy. I think the reason why he doesn't jump out is he played at the time on a team that didn't get a lot of national coverage. They weren't on television a lot. And he was quiet. He was another intellectual kind of guy who wasn't a big rah-rah guy. You never heard much about him. And I think he was in the shadow of some other linebacker. I mean, he played in an era of some great linebackers. Obviously, I think he kind of came, maybe a little bit, couple years past, number one on our list. But he was certainly in his shadow, but he lived up to it, man. He was fantastic.
Yeah, he really was. And yeah, his like you said before, it's unfortunate with the car accident and that, and his life getting cut short. But if that didn't happen, I mean, I don't know that he would have made it to number one. No. But he I mean, if it could have been a 1A,
I mean, there's no one else on the list that you would say would have a shot
right
at number one, or certainly more so than he might have if he had played a few more years.
Right. So.
I don't think he would have been, but
I don't think he would have been.
But it might have been a 1A, 1B.
It might have been. He might have been cemented into that number two a little bit more than he was, or something like that. So. But
he didn't have the supporting cast for the duration of his career.
Well, it was the Derek Thomas show. It wasn't the Chiefs.
I remember that game where he had 7 sacks. I remember one time he was triple teamed, a tight end, a tackle, and a running back, and he just said, "I'm going to go around you two, and then I'm going to go right through you, and I'm going to make Dave Craig regret playing
football, let alone that day."
Yeah.
So, there you go. That's true. There you have it. All right, folks. Number 2, Derek Thomas. I'll take number 1. To nobody's surprise, is none other than Mr.
Ryan
Lawrence.
Sorry.
It's none other than this guy. No.
Lawrence Taylor.
Just
kidding. He looks different in that.
Just a little bit. Lawrence Taylor, folks. Lawrence Julius Taylor. LT. As he said in his induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, without the fans, there would have been a Lawrence Taylor, but there would have never been an LT. So, and that was kind of poignant. But he was drafted with the 2nd pick overall in the 1981 draft. Thank God the Giants had it. Out of North Carolina. He played his entire career for the G-Men, 81 through 93. 2-time Super Bowl champion, 21 and 25. He was the NFL's most valuable player in 1986. A defensive linebacker was the NFL's most valuable player. We were talking before about, they're not making anybody other than quarterbacks the MVP of the league.
Never a defensive player.
A defensive player, really? So,
only one of two to ever win that
one
award.
of two, yeah, and the other one was Alan Page.
Yeah,
and he's the only linebacker that was a defensive player for MVP. But yeah, 3-time defensive player of the year, and he was the only one that was a 3-time defensive player of the year until J.J. Watt came along. Anyway. But defensive rookie of the year in 81, 8-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 10-time Pro Bowler, folks. His first 10 years of his career, 81 through 90, he was a Pro Bowler 10 times. Sacks leader in 86, 75th anniversary team, 100th anniversary team, 80s All-Decade team. His number 56 is retired by the Giants. He's in the Giants Ring of Honor. Sporting News. I mean, I could go on and on with these. It could take about another hour. I could give you his accolades. But member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But he had 132 and a half sacks. If I'm not mistaken, and I could be, if I'm not mistaken, that didn't include his first year, because if I recall, they didn't count sack stats in 81. They started in 82.
Yeah.
So he had more than that. Not a lot more, but more than the 132 and a half. But yeah, I mean, he had troubles off the field, but he was just. Watching him play, and I could tell you, I saw him, not just on TV, going to games. It was just a pleasure to sit there and watch this man do what he did. He, week in and week out, he was just such a maestro at that position. He redefined the linebacker position. And nothing anybody can say can take that away from the man. No matter what he does and has done since. He was just an amazing athlete. His speed, his agility, his football knowledge, his football IQ or acumen, whatever you want to call it, was just second to none. He's probably, in my estimation, and I don't think I'm alone when I say this, probably the best player to ever play football.
I agree 100%. He had. There's only a couple athletes that I think had this sort of hard to define intangible of being able to take over a game and will themselves to win. I think Michael Jordan was one of them. I think Lawrence Taylor is another one. Now, Lawrence Taylor, he probably didn't. His career maybe could have had a little bit more longevity. He certainly lived life to the fullest. He was not.
That's no mistake.
He was without a doubt the best. I think he's the best player to ever play football. Period. And if it's hard to really describe to somebody, but there are some YouTube videos of just Lawrence Taylor plays, and it goes on for like 20 minutes. It's unbelievable to see the way that he could dominate a game. And I thought Brian Bosworth came close, but there's
then he played.
Yeah, there's just nobody.
The only other guy I would say would come close, and unfortunately he had a career that was much too short, was maybe Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
As far as being a pure athlete and a guy that could seemingly do whatever he wanted. But
yeah, I mean, it was.
It's like really. It's a very, very. Really, no one else in Taylor's category, and I think along with his intelligence, I think he just had incredible instinct for the game of football as well. And sometimes you have players who have really good instincts, but Taylor also had the football IQ or acumen or whatever you want to call it to go along with that. And I think that's one of the things that made him so great. But there was no one even close to as dominant.
No.
Certainly at that position, we just, we talked about, Derek Thomas, but LT
totally different personality.
Yeah. And LT was one of a kind. And I think I said before, maybe his lifestyle, I don't know. It didn't even. He was just so good. It didn't seem to be a detraction. No one. So. Unless you hated the Giants because your team was a rival of theirs, no one really hate. Oh, LT, he's great, but he's a drug addict. It's just we accepted it was part of him, and maybe that's part of what made him great. Maybe if he hadn't lived that lifestyle, maybe he wouldn't. It seems counterintuitive to say because you think. That sort of abuse would take its toll on the body. And there's legendary stories of him like walking off the golf course on Super Bowl Sunday,
Well,
being up all night before playoff games, and
Right.
But that was part of what made him him, and maybe that was necessary. As part of his greatness.
He was half Babe Ruth and half Michael Jordan, even though he came before Michael Jordan. I mean, those are the only athletes that sort of remind me of what he was. Of his legend. He was football. I mean, he was that good.
He was. And he was taken second overall. The Saints had the first pick that year, and they picked running back George Rogers.
Who was pretty good, but no Lawrence Taylor.
He was not Lawrence Taylor. And who had the third pick that year, Pete?
Let's see. Was it the Jets?
It was the Jets. Who'd they pick?
Blair Thomas. I have no idea. What year was it?
I'm sorry. I just told you.
I didn't hear you.
81. Freeman McNeil. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, that was a pretty good pick, too.
It was a good pick.
Really good pick.
That was a great pick.
Yeah. Better than Sam Bowie.
This is true. Anyway. All right, folks. That was our number one, Lawrence Taylor. Best linebacker in NFL history. No surprise at all.
And I agree with you guys. Best player. Whoever played the game.
Yeah, just ridiculous. So, all right, that brings us to our Old Balls segment. Old Balls. Harry, why don't you tell us who this week's Old Balls is?
Old Balls is someone who I think we've talked about before. when we were talking about the greatest Giants of all time. But look, there was a lot of guys on this list that had they not made this list, they would have been today's old balls. But they just happened. Their old balls made it onto the list.
Right.
So in keeping with linebackers, today's old balls is none other than Robert Lee Sam Huff, who was an American football linebacker for the New York Giants as well as the Washington Redskins. He played from 1956 to 1969 and was drafted as a defensive lineman. He was in training camp in 56. The Giants didn't have a place for him to play. He just wasn't working out. And he left training camp, but was stopped at the airport by an assistant coach at the Giants at the time named Vince Lombardi, who I think maybe knew a little something about defense.
A little bit.
Then defensive coordinator Tom Landry, boy, this is some good coaching, huh?
You think?
Came up with a new 4-3 defensive scheme and made him the middle linebacker. And that really changed Huff, and it changed the game to he sort of was one of the first quintessential middle linebackers that wasn't playing with somebody else adjacent to him. 4 down linemen and 2 outside linebackers and a middle linebacker. And he was, he won an NFL championship in 1956, was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first team All-Pro, 1950s All-Decade team. And I don't know if he's in the Football Hall of Fame. I don't think he is. But
he is.
He is.
Oh,
he
he
is.
is? Okay.
Yeah, Sam Huff's in. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. He should be. I think he was one of the quintessential linebackers. I mean, he may have kind of reinvented that middle linebacker position. And along with some of these other, and he was a smart football player. He had a really high football IQ. I think he's one of the guys that kind of falls through the cracks when you talk about this position because it was so long ago, and his numbers are not maybe as impressive as some others, but he had 30 interceptions and 5 touchdowns in his career.
Okay.
And back then these guys played on offense and defense half the time, so he was just old school to the bone, and I think one of the best certainly to ever play the position.
Yeah, I agree. And Jim Brown actually once was quoted as saying, Sam was basically the quarterback of that defense.
Yeah. And
had the flair to understand he was in New York. So he became an instant celebrity by attaching himself to my legs quite often.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, Johnny, can you put that other picture up, the first picture up?
The first picture?
Yeah.
There
Who's that guy, number 76?
That would be none other than Mr. Roosevelt Greer.
Oh, okay. Good God.
Rosie Greer. That's Dave Modzelewski on the other side, 77.
It makes Sam Huff look like a kicker.
Sam Huff looks like a kicker.
The only thing that you don't want to get behind those guys other than the football field is the buffet line. I want all of the ham.
Yeah, they were big boys back then. Rosie Greer was he's a big boy.
Monstrous.
Absolutely.
He played both middle interior. He was 2 of the 4 down linemen.
He was 2 of the 4 down linemen.
Yeah, they called it a 4-3, but it was really a 3-3.
If you look close, there's another 7 on. He's 76 and 77.
Yeah, there was one guy behind him. I don't know what you were talking about. So anyway, all right.
Yeah. Sam Huff was kind of like he took those West Virginia good looks and became a star.
Yeah, he did.
Plus, I mean, I think you're going to be a linebacker if your name's Sam Huff.
If your name's Sam Huff, you don't have much of a choice. You're either putting siding on houses or you're a linebacker. One or the other.
Yeah.
So, and I guess he picked the right career. So, well, there you go. This week's Old Balls, Mr. Sam Huff.
Old Balls.
There we go. To get the sounder in there.
Like old balls, it sometimes takes a minute to get.
Sometimes it takes a minute to get it working. There you go. All right, why don't we switch gears? I know there's not much to talk about in Major League Baseball, but the Mets did sign Trevor May to a 2-year, $15 million contract for the bullpen out of Minnesota. Took him out of the Twins. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on that move?
Who?
Trevor May. Good pitcher from the Twins.
No, there's an owl in here.
Oh, yeah, right. Gotcha.
I didn't think there could be anything worse than a Giants-Jets segment, but I think we're venturing into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Trevor May Hour is beginning.
Trevor May Hour is brought to you by...
Doesn't training camp, is they going to have a bubble training camp this year?
The training camp's actually happening at in the Meadowlands. They're not at MetLife Stadium either.
At the racetrack?
At the racetrack. They're putting a bubble over the racetrack.
In the stalls of the racetrack?
Right, exactly. So, but no, I mean, there's not much going on. Hot Stove is kind of lukewarm at this point. It's not,
I think you're going to see some activity going on though soon. As soon as they, people got to start signing somebody, right?
Yeah. It's definitely slow going, and that's what everybody's saying. So, but yeah, I mean, and Chris Young decided not to interview for the GM position with the Mets, and nothing against the man, but. I'm good on that.
Dodged a potential bullet.
A little bit there. So.
The Cubs cut Kyle Schwarber.
They did. They cut Kyle Schwarber. There's a few things happening, but nothing's really heating up just yet, so there's not a whole hell of a lot to really discuss. So.
Well, let me just bring one thing up, that it's a story I saw.
Sure.
And I only mention this guy because he's sort of a mainstay on my my Ken Griffey Jr. baseball Super Nintendo game that I play on my retro system.
Gotcha.
LaTroy Hawkins has made the Hall of Fame ballot, which I find interesting. And he's for me when I'm
he's an interesting guy.
Yeah, he's a great late pickup for video game baseball from that era. Kind of a fireballer throughout much of his career. I'll give you his numbers real quick.
Sure.
75 and 94, 1,042 games. Appearances, 98 games started, 127 saves, 1,467 innings pitched, 4.31 ERA, 983 strikeouts, a 141 whip, which is not great, but not bad. But I don't know. He's
4.31 ERA.
Yeah, it's a bit high, right?
Yeah.
A bit high for the Hall of Fame.
A little bit high for the Hall of Fame.
And he played on like 11 teams or something like that. He's kind of bounced around.
Wouldn't it be funny if he got into the Hall of Fame before Albert Bell did?
Well, that's what you get for being a jerk to the press, I guess.
Exactly.
Those guys hold grudges like nobody else.
Clearly.
So I don't know if I get that the ERA is a little high.
Yeah.
And the whip, like I said, 141 is not that. I mean, it's good, but it's not that great.
Well, what was it? When was when was his first year of eligibility?
This is it.
This is his first year of eligibility.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, he was drafted in 91. He was born in 1972.
Okay.
And debuted. Let's see, Major League debut was in 1995.
All right.
So there you go. So that's a good 15-year career.
Good 15-year career.
Yeah, bounced around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I only mentioned it because he was kind of a mainstay on my video game teams.
Gotcha.
Good guy that could come in, pitch, make a spot start, or that was kind of his thing. I mean, he was a closer for a little while on and off, but
right.
had a little bit of a longer arm than a lot of guys that threw, hard.
Yeah, that's.
But consensus, not Hall of Famer amongst this crew.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, hey, you know what? Good, kudos to him that he made the ballot. Good for him. But
and who knows? Give it a couple of years, and
you never know.
You never know.
Stranger things have happened.
Somebody who I know is not going to get into the Hall of Fame is, for some reason, still on the Yankees, and I just can't understand why. But maybe it's trade bait. I don't know why the Yankees are continuing their relationship with Gary Sanchez. They have so many other decisions to make that.
I just think they want to. I think they haven't. My opinion. I think they have so much invested in him, even if it's just mentally. That they want to see what they can make of him, if for nothing else but to trade him. Instead of just releasing him at that point.
Well, who's going to take him though? I mean, I think that's the problem. But maybe there's some trade bait. I don't know.
Well, he might not be a primary. I mean, he might be sort of on the back end, somebody that you throw in
Sure.
to sort of seal the deal with another team. Look, I mean, it's Gary Sanchez, and there's a lot of potential there.
Right.
So he's not the guy that somebody another team is necessarily going to want to trade for.
Right.
But maybe the Yankees are saying, well, we'll throw him in. If it's close, but the other team's wavering a little bit, you say, well, we'll throw Sanchez in too,
Right.
and maybe he'll be the great player that we think he might be, or has the potential to be for you that he wasn't for the Yankees.
Right.
That would be but certainly he's not going to be the primary. Well, it could be some team out there that goes, yeah, just get him here. A different environment might spark him to be,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
a possibility.
It's a possibility. He's just really fun. I mean, there's going to be a lot of decisions the Yankees make here in the next. I think today isn't today one of the days when they have to make some decisions on who they're tendering offers to and who they're not.
Mm-hmm.
I
think the was it the Rule 5 draft or whatever, the or tender. Yeah, that's it's either today or tomorrow one of them. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think baseball start to heat up. There's got to be some trades brewing, and
we're going to hear some stuff before the end of the year. We're not waiting until January or anything on this. We'll know some stuff soon. And even with the Mets, with those front office positions, with the with the GM and the president of baseball operations, that'll be soon. I still think they're going to throw some money at Theo Epstein, but we'll see what happens.
Well, they'll try at least.
They're going to try.
What will be interesting to me is to see how the free agents get signed, especially the pitchers.
Yeah.
Because if you remember a couple of years ago, guys were, really good pitchers were not getting signed.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk about, collusion and all that stuff.
Oh,
so
sure. Yeah. There were
interesting now with not fans in the stands and, that sort of up in the air. Are these guys going to get deals, or are teams going to be reluctant to give them money?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, there were pitchers and catchers were reported, and spring training had started, and there were a bunch of pitchers not even signed yet. So
and these were 15 game winners.
Yeah,
I can't remember any of their names, of course, but there's one guy on the Astros, and I think was it
Arrieta was one of them.
Arrieta, and these were quality pitchers that you thought would have been snapped up, but they weren't.
So, well. It's going to heat up. It's going to heat up soon. Next week or the week after, we'll have some stuff to talk about. So, let's switch gears and before we finish the show and talk a little NBA. Again, not a whole hell of a lot going on, other than the fact that training camps have started. So it's season's coming soon. Starts December 22nd. We're 20 days away from opening day of NBA play. Say that. Fast 5 times. But yeah, I got a couple things to ask you guys. Just on the New York front, James Harden said, he was quoted as saying that Kevin Durant asked him personally to come to the Nets, and then they interviewed Kevin Durant, and he denied it. You believe Kevin Durant?
Well, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Houston just traded Russell Westbrook to Washington for John Wall and a first-round pick. So
did that happen today?
Yeah, I think that changes. I think they're trying to keep Harden in Houston. I think it's going to be hard for Harden to move. But I think if he goes anywhere, it's going to be either Brooklyn or Philadelphia.
Right.
Yeah, but why would they move him now? I mean, well, I don't know what Wall's got left on his contract, but he's making a lot of money. I think he's got a number of years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he wasn't the guy to build a team around in Washington. So why would you bring – I mean, he's a quality player, but he just couldn't seem to get along with anybody.
No, and it's injuries that really hurt him. I mean, he was – I think you're trading one type of player for another. Wall's score – I just think that I think Houston's looking to get rid of Westbrook, and it sounds like they did. And –
I think it was more about getting rid of Westbrook than it was about taking
but I mean,
Wall
as far as Wall,
and I think Wall
Harden,
only has 1 year left on his contract, so I think they're
so
saying, all right,
it's Wall. Yes, 1 year.
We'll eat this contract.
Okay.
And they're getting a first round pick from Washington, which is
it was more about the first round pick. Too.
Yeah, if it's only for 1 year, then I could see it. But if it was for multiple years, I'd say they'd want to keep those two guys together. But yeah, so obviously it's going to be They get that contract off the books after this season, and they get a first-round pick.
I mean, to me, them taking Wall is like, what? That's not going to entice James Harden to stay. So I think
you wouldn't.
I think Houston I think Houston's trying to. I think he could be traded.
So they're cleaning. Look, if they're going to get rid of Harden too, they're obviously just going to clean house and start all over again.
And I think that's what they're doing. But
yeah,
like I was saying though, do you believe that Kevin Durant? He denied saying that. He denied talking to Harden about that. Do you? I don't believe him. I believe he did, and he's just that's my choice, or opinion anyway. I should say.
I think maybe he's hung out with Kyrie for a few days now and realized,
and he's a downer.
Maybe I need somebody else over here.
Somebody else over here. This picture surfaced of Kevin.
The
Durant.
Lakers just got better, so maybe.
This picture surfaced of Kevin Durant too. I mean, what do you think, man? You think he's going out for? That's a football he's holding there. That's not a basketball. So.
Imagine Kevin Durant as a quarterback. I wouldn't. I mean, he would be amazing.
It would be
certainly wouldn't have a problem throwing over offensive linemen.
Not at all.
Not at all. That's a big target.
Exactly.
Those skinny legs running around with a football in his hand.
Throw the ball really high up in the air, run downfield, and catch it.
Yeah, I would be a better wide receiver, but
to your question, John, I would tend to think that James Harden is telling the truth.
Durant's
a little sketchy.
Yeah,
for all of his kid with the backpack image that he cultivated early on, he's a bit sketchy.
Yeah, of the two,
none of these guys are. The only guy who's an I want to do it alone guy in the whole league is what's his name up Portland. It's just. I mean, these guys just want to team up and put together these super teams and see who can beat the Lakers now. So.
And that's what it is. I believe, like I said, I agree with you and myself. Obviously, I believe Harden over Durant. So. But and moving on to the Knicks, how much is Tom Thibodeau drooling over Obi Toppin? I mean,
well, he's putting on a good face. He's. I don't know what to think of Obi Toppin. There's some people, I mean, they didn't need another forward. He's kind of a unique player. I think the Knicks front line will be pretty good defensively, especially if Julius Randle can improve on that, because they look good on paper. They're young. They've got a lot of top draft picks. I just don't think they have. I think they're holding their breath, waiting for next year's free agent market and saying, "Hey, maybe, just maybe, we can land somebody here."
Yeah,
and we all know how that goes with the current ownership. But if this front office, the new front office, and a new coach can move the Knicks in the right direction and maybe appeal to some of these younger players, younger first-time free agents who are coming out of their rookie contracts, you never know.
Alan Hahn said something the other day. He was talking about Thibodeau, and he was saying you do have this young team, and if he can mold them into, as he called, there won't be a team that wins a lot, but there'll be a team that nobody wants to play. If they get out, they're all in, they play tough defense, and none of the superstar teams are going to want to play them. He said, mold them into that kind of team, and with the youth and the energy, then you can start to attract some guys who will want to come to a situation where you've got a team full of guys who are just going to scratch and claw and bite. And that's kind of what Thibodeau does.
Right.
That's sort of his MO.
His moniker,
right. So he said, that's probably the plan. Create a team that is, granted, initially not going to win very much, but is going to be tough. It's going to kind of harken back to the hard-nosed defense. Now, you made the point.
He's going to try to do that.
Yeah, right. And you made the point, how much is that going to sell?
Right.
But at this point, given the roster they have, what other real options do you have?
I think
you don't have a lot of offense. And,
I think they have some guys who are pretty good defensive players. And Mitchell Robinson comes to mind. I think Toppin, if he wants to come in, his defense is going to come before his scoring comes. They're going to be pretty athletic and long. And I think that'll fit into what Thibodeau wants to do. The reality of it is somebody, look, Randall averaged almost 20 points a game last year. It really comes down to, is RJ Barrett really a top 20 NBA player, or is he not?
Not probably not.
Yeah.
But if you can put up enough defense,
Right.
and get a couple of guys who are just outside of that, top, then maybe you don't need to score quite so many points every game.
I mean, it's the same predicament the Knicks have been in, but I think they're in a better situation cap wise. Yeah. It's just, does anybody want to go and play there?
Well, RJ Barrett last year, he ranked minutes per game. He ranked fourth.
He actually had
one of third.
He had one of the better seasons amongst rookies.
He had a really good rookie season last year. Third in rebounds, fifth in assists, and third in steals.
Yep.
But it's not all grim. It's just
he'd be a great third option on a team that has two other guys who can carry the load, and that's it. That's what the Knicks need: one top free agent to say, "I'm going to go there," and then bring his buddy.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they have the nucleus of, and the Knicks could be pretty deep they're kind of consistent. 1-2. I think Thibodeau is going to have a lot of variety in who he starts and matchups and things like that, because they got a lot of the same players. I mean, do you start Randall and Toppin together? Is one really a 3 and one a 4? You can move Barrett to the 3 if you go small. You can go big with Nicolita, who's kind of, he's a big point guard. I'm not sold on Nicolita. I'm not sold on their backcourt. I think they need a point guard and another shooter. Yeah. And I think that'll open it up for Barrett. They're kind of, last year they were kind of a throwback team in that they were, it just seemed like they were a team made up of 3.5 forwards. They weren't small forwards. They weren't power forwards. They were just this team of forwards, and it didn't matter who you threw in there. I think they're better this year. They're younger. They're really young
and more and moldable,
but they don't have any of that veteran kind of input on the team. I think this is a holding year. I think they're just going to say, okay, what can we do? Can we change the perception? And look, this might be the best year to do it. You don't have to worry about people not coming to the games. You don't have to worry about distractions in the crowd and what Spike Lee doing and Charles Oakley's despicable treatment by
Jim Dolan getting its spats with anybody. And that's the real question, though, is if this goes well, and you're right, because there won't be people in the stands probably. Can they will Dolan allow the process to happen? Because this is not a 76ers process.
No.
Where we're just going to tank and suck for 3 years and get a couple of really good draft picks. No. There's a possibility, and again, we're kind of speculating, basing on what Alan Hahn, who knows way more about basketball than I do, sort of thinks is what the idea or what they could do or what they should do. But will Dolan let them do anything for more than a year and a half before he decides this isn't working and we need to change things up?
Right. I mean,
that's the real question.
The Knicks are sort of a team that's built for basketball 12 years ago. They have a coach that's built for basketball 12 years ago. They have a roster that's built for basketball 12 years ago. I just don't see in this barrage of three-point shooting that is the NBA now. I just don't see the Knicks competing at a high level. I also don't see them having the front court to just dominate. They don't have anybody as dynamic as an Anthony Davis they have all of their players. Their starting lineup would make an exceptional second team on a championship roster.
Yeah.
But I'm not sold on any, will there be improvement? Sure. Will somebody rise? Yes. But
they're going to have to get scoring from somewhere.
Right.
And they're going to have to be really good defending the perimeter.
Yeah.
And, those are two tall orders when you've got, when RJ Barrett is arguably, either RJ Barrett or Zach Randolph is arguably your best player. Certainly your best offensive option.
Right.
Julius Randle, Zach.
That's
Zach Randolph. But that's the era. That's what the Knicks sort of remind me of, is the Zach Randolph years.
Yeah.
It's just like,
tough, hard-nosed, bruising.
Right.
But they're not tough. They look like they should be, but they're not. I don't know. I mean, I was not super excited on the Thibodeau hiring, but we'll see.
They have an opportunity to become something because right now they have no identity whatsoever.
No.
So maybe with Thibodeau, even if it's an identity that was in vogue 12 years ago, at least there'll be something.
10 years ago. I mean, he was on the Bulls, and
but at least they'll have some sort of identity, and they'll say, well, and look, and if it is a little bit of a tougher defensive identity, that's kind of in keeping with the Knicks' history.
Sure.
Yeah.
They were never an offensive explosion type of team. It was defense first.
I mean, Thibodeau, I think with the Knicks, he's part of the tree that has built the Knicks. He started coaching in the 80s. He was an assistant coach with Jeff Van Gundy. So I mean, it goes back a ways, and obviously he had a good year in 2011 with the Bulls, but he had a lot more talent on that team. He arguably had one of the top 3 players in the league, and the guy who I think won the MVP that year. So I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
It'll be interesting. I mean, the Knicks were kind of interesting to watch last year. But at the end of the game, when you need somebody to score, that's just where it seemed like the Knicks just struggled big time.
Yeah, and they definitely did. But well, we're going to see what happens. I mean, the season starts on December 22nd. I was just going to say December 25th. Hey, Christmas Day means basketball, right?
Right.
There's five games. I said 5 games.
That's because they're planning on 3 of them being postponed.
Yeah. Right. Pelicans at Heat at 12 o'clock. Warriors the Bucks at 2:30. Nets at the Celtics at 5. These are all Eastern times, by the way. Mavericks at Lakers at 8, and the Clippers at the Nuggets at 10:30. So it's 8:30 by you, Harry.
Yes.
But I was going to say, remember back in the day when we used to watch the Knicks on Christmas Day? Yeah,
I remember Bernard King going off against the Celtics, and you're not going to watch anything regarding the Knicks on
Christmas Day anytime soon.
The most exciting day of the year for the Knicks lately has been the lottery ball bounce.
I was going to say the lottery day.
Well, this could be. I mean, from a coverage standpoint, this could be interesting to watch the Knicks and see if they do have success. Yeah. And look, the Nets are not guaranteed of anything. There's always the injury possibility. Knock wood.
And we don't know how they're going to. I mean, they could be the Tampa Bay Bucks.
They have a lot of questions, given the team and what they did last year, and now you're inserting 2 new superstars. You've got a neophyte coach. There's a whole lot of things that have to come together and work together.
Yeah.
You can't just, look, you've got 2 superstars, 2 of the top players in the game playing together. But if everything else is kind of not on par or not working, then that's, they're not going to win all the time anyway. You can't, it's not as simple as saying KD and Kyrie, and that guarantees. There's no guarantees.
They're not going 82-0.
No, I
think they're even playing 82 games.
They got a lot of questions to answer. How do we make this all fit? And how does Steve Nash, deal with the personalities as well as the X's and O's?
Right.
So, I tend to think in the long run they're going to be good, but it could be interesting to see how the Knicks and the Nets do.
The Nets are a really easy team for me to root against. They always have been, and now it's even more than ever. It's just
look, my dad was
a bunch of hipsters in the crowd now drinking kombucha with their ironic mustaches, and it's just like
super gentrified Brooklyn.
Yeah,
my dad was of the ilk that if you were a fan of one team, either in the same city or the same state or whatever, you were required to hate any other teams from the area. So if you were a Knicks fan, you had to hate the Nets. If you were a Nets fan, you had to hate the Knicks.
Well, back when I was in high school, it was even back then it's still hard to get a Knicks ticket, but we had free Nets tickets. You just had to drive to New Brunswick to go see them play. And I can't even remember who played on the Nets back then, but
Then they came to the arena, so it was a little easier see them.
Nothing like a nice trip to Newark. Oh no, that was the Devils.
That was the Devils.
Yeah.
Well, then they went to Newark after
Nothing
that,
wrong with
so-
Newark. Newark's great.
Newark's
Newark's a lot more. There's a lot better places to eat before and after a game in Newark than there is in East Rutherford.
That's true.
This is very true. That's good food.
You got to go to Moonaki to find a good diner.
Yeah.
Or as Ed Koch, God rest his soul, said, Moonachi.
Moonachi.
Moonachie. Yeah.
Moonachi said.
Hello, ho hocus.
All right. Well, that'll about wrap it up for this show today. I want to thank everybody for watching. We want to thank everybody for watching. I keep saying that. Sorry.
I thank no one.
Pete thanks no one.
I feel sorry for anybody who endured all of this.
I pity all of you.
We want to thank everyone for watching. And for those of you listening on the audio podcast, thanks for listening. Don't forget to visit our website, www.lagerroom.com. That's LAGERROOM.com. And please remember, like us and follow us on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel. All of them are at The Lager Room. And remember, we go live with the video podcast on both Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday at 7 o'clock-ish. For those of you, next week will be on time. For those of you that want to listen to the audio podcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. And those of you that haven't done so already, please subscribe to one or more of those feeds and you'll never miss a show. Again, thanks for following along with us. Have a great weekend. Watch a lot of football. Enjoy. And we will talk to you soon, folks. Take care, guys.
Peace.
Ciao.